should be working, right? Oh, that's a bit loud. That should be working now. Ugh. Sometimes OBS forgets things. Oops. Yes, I can speak, I can sing, I can dance. That's been tweeted. Oh, gotta share the link on the Discord now. Oh, don't do that. There we go. That's there. All right. Yay. When am I doing a hot tub stream? Not anytime soon. Hi, Randy. Yeah, this is mostly because I'm doing things because everything else got delayed again. There's supposed to be a Know Your Rocket coming out tomorrow, but it took me longer than I thought to make it. So, how far ahead? Am I? Wait, let me just check. Because I can change how fast. No, I don't know where that's. Oh, well. Customization? Oh, wow, I can do that? Message delay. That's okay. That's weird. Yeah. Yeah. Let me see that. Do I know I'm alive? Yep, I know I'm alive. Yeah. Okay, so we'll watch some things. When some other folks start showing up. I know it's a Friday night, you're all partying and doing, happy fun things, but I can't do this tomorrow night. Well, I will be in a Hawaiian shirt and swim trunks in the coming week, 2 weeks. Yeah, I would have done this tomorrow night, but tomorrow night I'll be, let's see, it'll be 8. I'll have just arrived at Atlanta, so let's see. They made the Orion's heat shield. I did, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm not Ellen McLean. I can't do that voice. Wait, am I frozen? Okay, no, I'm not. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, so I've been recommended videos to watch and judge harshly. So, oh my gosh, that is really behind. Oh, that's because it's not up to date. That's why. Okay. It's been a while, okay? I could get one of those AI things to replicate it and then I get sued. I think Jim Can't Swim is actually using an AI generated voice now for their videos. So, that's not good. Alright, so I'm going to pull up the first suggestion and we'll go from there. Where is this? Oh, what spurned this was NASA Spaceflight was did a video on HLS options. And that's what I wanted to react to first. No, I don't want to look at tanks. That's annoying. Ah, there we go.
It is a great...
Yep. All right. I'm gonna go to full screen. Got to turn on closed captioning. Oh, got to comment on the hot staging? Well, hot staging's okay. It's just making a design change like this at this point means that they're, I think they're not, I think the program's not going so well. But I am right! The staging method was wrong! Sorry. Turn on my gain? I don't... What the... It's just this. I don't know how to fix any of this. I've been trying to fix this. Okay, wait. How do I... Okay, let me turn that down a little bit more. There we go. 20... That's minus 24. OBS is so weird. Blowing out the... Yeah, I've been trying to fix this for end of mission, and it didn't... I know the last one just was awful because of that. No, they're not going to use the flinging. They're using hot staging. Well, yeah, it will damage the top is super heavy, but you can design around that. So, I have pop right here. What are you talking about? I just got to put it in front of this, and we're good. I'm going to get a new mic when I get back, so I can re-record episode 4 of End of Mission. Oh, I should probably change the screen so you can actually see what I'm looking at. Okay, let me see. Am I at the right sound? Turn me a little bit down. There we go. Okay, how do I sound? Why am I not? Go back to live. There we go. Do I sound okay? The silence is scaring me. Alright, I'm gonna hit play on this. Wait, let me put that up. That up. Okay. Yeah, so the problem with for End of Mission is his face of sarcasm is we're recording our Skype call, and that's and he's really quiet, or I have to be blown out. We're going to try to fix it. All right, so this is the one that spurned this. Like butter on pancakes. All right, so we're going to react to this. Okay, I got to put on my, YouTube thing. React! What's up, everybody? Got to, do that. Okay.
Great time to be a space fan. We have not one...
But, yeah, the plan, one of the suggestions I have to fix this is for him to record his half, and I'll record my half. Okay. It's a great time to be a space fan. We have not one what? Also, it's not a good time, but...
But 2 lunar landers being built for the Artemis program.
How's the sound? Too loud? Too quiet? Okay. Oh no, I don't want to become Vosh. That's not... Oh, they're going to accuse me of being the Kharkiv kid finder or something like that. That's not going to be good. All right, we'll react to this. Cool.
First, the ambitious Starship by SpaceX for the Artemis 3 and 4 missions.
Yeah.
And second, Blue Origin and the national team with their lander for Artemis 5.
That's not that. That's the wrong lander. Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. I don't think this was captioned well. Is this... I say not having any closed captioning on my stuff.
But is one of them better than the other? Let's compare both landers, dive into the similarities and differences, and determine if we need both and if they are on time for their missions.
All right. It's funny how this is called... It's funny how this is called NASA Spaceflight, and most of their footage is about SpaceX. I just think it's funny. Oh, Delta 4. Yes!
As you probably all know, Blue Origin initially competed against SpaceX in the Human Landing System contract, in which SpaceX won the bid for Artemis 3. At this point, SpaceX is under contract to perform the landings for Artemis 3 and Artemis 4. The lander, Mark II, who was now selected for this mission, can bring up to 4 astronauts to the lunar surface and support them there for up to 30 days in a fully reusable configuration.
You know what's funny, though? Blue Origin is down the street from me. I'll just go sneak in there. I'll ask them.
Cargo variant of this lander will be able to bring 20 tons in reusable and 30 tons in a one-way configuration. The whole infrastructure will be based on hydrogen and oxygen, which might be one of the make or break points of the lander. Remember, with SLS, hydrogen can be complicated. It requires to be very cold.
It's not the best way to... Okay, whatever.
It can leak very easily, and it needs a lot of insulation. Blue says the high specific impulse of LOX LH2 provides a dramatic advantage for high energy deep space missions. Nevertheless, lower performing but more easily storable propellants have been favored for these missions because of the problematic boil off of LOX LH2 during their long mission timelines. This is one of the bigger challenges that could arise during the development of the lander.
That's true.
Making sure the hydrogen stays in place.
Yeah.
But also refuel.
Yeah, look at that. Hydrogen. Isn't that cool? Well, methane, well, the thing is, methane boils off, but it's at roughly the same temperatures as liquid oxygen, so it actually is really easier to store. And liquid oxygen is really easy to store in space. The Apollo missions actually had liquid oxygen on board. Again, the O2 tanks. I think Gemini had a few. It's just, the real problem is hydrogen. Is just, again, I did a propellant resupply architecture for Mars missions that was studying how to store liquid hydrogen in space, and that was, hello Artem. It was power hungry, I'll say that.
It, more on that later, could be challenging with the extra slippery fuel. The one advantage Blue has here is the fact that they already work with hydrogen.
Hey, wait, we should use propellants that we know and understand? Makes sense. Also, you know what's fun? Oh, oops. I've actually driven by Van Horn. I drove through it on my way to the Grand Canyon last year. It looks, and this is in really stunning part of Texas.
A New Shepard vehicle. Yes, this is not even close to being comparable to a New Glenn upper stage or a New Orbit refueling. But at least they are going in not completely blind. But it's not all bad news for Blue. Let's move to some things that promise a bright future and where they are really good at. Infrastructure. Blue continues constructing an impressive campus at the Cape for their New Glenn rocket. More and more hardware of the rocket is being spotted at the Cape, which promises some good...
Yeah, that does remind me. When I drive into work now, on the Arsenal, there's a spot over. I always glance over. I can see where they're building the test article for the SLS Block 1B interstage. It's really cool. So yeah, because I saw the ICPS structural test article and the LVSA structural test article when I was driving into work one day and went, wait, I know what those are. It's cool, but yeah. Well, yeah, you got to dumb down language sometimes, but I do it all the time. There's a reason I write scripts. You can see when I try to do end of mission.
Good advancement on the rocket for their lander. At the pad, we have seen rings, test tanks, pathfinders, and transport director tests. Furthermore, Blue has an impressive facility for first and second stage testing at the Cape, where they can prepare upcoming New Glenns. Yeah, the rocket has yet to start flying, but Blue will build the infrastructure to scale it once it does. With its current debut being planned for 2023, and even if we can include several slips, New Glenn will likely be not on the critical path.
Wait, did he? I wasn't paying attention if he concluded that was... We'll get into that, because that's going to be one of the big bottlenecks for both of these designs. And now, propellant transfer has been done. It's based off the old Soviet stuff, which was... I think they just use a piston to push the hypergulls into salutes. That's what they do. But yeah, a lot of people don't understand the difference between a lot of these, which gets kind of annoying. So
for 2029 readiness. Signs point to a 24-25 New Glenn flying. So let's hope for that.
Wait, signs point to that. The only people saying this are SpaceX fans who love saying things are slipping all the time, and they will somehow justify Starship's slips. So, today's fair use rocket is, you were going to know what it is tomorrow had I finished it. This is the Whittinghill MCLV. It is a nanosat launch vehicle. There's only 2 images I can find of it. So, yeah. Hey, what's that behind there? So where do you get the hexagon lights like this? I've looked at Target. I'm not gonna get them, but where do you get these lights? Okay, we'll keep going.
Part of this infrastructure will also be the buildings.
Wait, JM, you have pizza you're not gonna share with us? Well, hypergulls. So the issue with hypergulls would be lower performance. It would be the lower performance. We'd have to do sizing studies for that, and then the propellant transfer. I think if you start working out the math, you would start. It's a challenge. You'd have to do an actual trade study on that to see why. Hypergulls benefit space storable, but they have lower ISP. They're denser, so they have smaller tanks, but you'd need more of them. I think maybe launch infrastructure as well. How do you store it on the vehicle? Because when you're talking about launching that much mass, it's mostly, my volume. Okay, okay. How much more do you want me to be? A little bit like this, like that. I'm gonna go up to there. So I'm just peeking. I'm going into the orange now when I'm speaking. Yeah, the in situ's the other part. You can make hydrogen and oxygen on the moon. So we can always use peroxide. No one's used that yet. But oh well. Gotta keep doing this.
To develop hardware for the lander. Even though we have not yet heard confirmation where the final lander will be built, facilities at the Cape will likely work on it, as this will be the launch center for the lander. Initially, Blue Origin tried to mock SpaceX for having a lander that needed refueling.
Okay, it wasn't that. You need 16 flights to make Starship architecture work. That's an immensely complicated system. It's, again, when people say this, I don't think they understand what complex and high risk means. I don't think they do. Because it's complex because you need to launch 16 super heavy lift launch vehicles to support this mission, all in rapid succession, and transfer hundreds of tons of propellant. This is an incredibly complex system that they're proposing. It's high risk because if you lose one, you lose the mission. So it's annoying that these people will just, I don't know if they willfully don't understand this or they just don't understand it. I don't know. Oh yeah, Blue did use peroxide. Yeah.
Well, theirs also will be refueled. The cislunar...
How many refuelings do they have? How many refuelings do they have for the new one? Isn't it like 2 or 3? Again, you're talking up to 5 launches versus 16. That's a third. So I thought they were doing a depot, because that's what the GAO report said. I don't know. They're secretive. They won't tell us anything. So, well, I think that 16 includes a reserve. So, it's
Transporter, a reusable tanker built by Lockheed Martin for this purpose, will be fueled in low Earth orbit before flying to the near rectilinear halo orbit to refuel the lander. So, both landers of the program now need on-orbit storage and propellant transfer development. That's really exciting, but also a schedule risk. Let's look at the final part of this. Engines. BE4, the reusable Methalox engine to power New Glenn and ULH Vulcan.
Yeah.
In the past, the engine has been a schedule slipper.
They're engines. Engines are always the biggest pacing item for your program. They'll always be the biggest pacing item. It's got the most moving parts. It's just I don't know.
It's constantly having problems or not reaching its final goals. But this time seems to be over. As BE4 will fly on ULA's Vulcan very soon, this confirms it is at least theoretically ready for flight. The only question after this remains is, could this engine also support multiple relights and the performance needed for New Glenn? As we sadly don't know if there's a significant difference in the configuration of both rockets using the engine. Time will tell, but it looks at least promising. Recently, ULA performed a
Yeah.
successful flight readiness firing
Oh, yeah.
using the BE-4 engine.
Oh, yeah.
This means the engines are cleared to fly on the debut mission, which increases the confidence. We are most likely talking about the BE-7 engine on the lander side. Blue confirmed in the past that the designated lunar engine had been fired, although we lack concrete updates on the timeline,
Yeah.
success, and confidence of these tests.
Well, yeah.
Certainly one of the biggest unknowns. Let's move over to SpaceX. But before we do, time for today's sponsor.
Thanks, Adrian.
No, skipping, no sponsorships here. You should sponsor me instead. No, don't care. Okay. I'm going to speed up just a little bit in case someone accuses me of stealing stuff. Playback speed, 1.25, just a little bit faster. It's not, jeez. Yeah, it's just, yeah, that's what I was thinking with the depot. Put one in low Earth orbit and just refuel it. It's an awful architecture. It's not a good thing. You could have built something out of Starship that was more useful, but I don't know.
Talk about the big rocket you're all here for, Starship. Starship performed its first integrated test flight in April of this year. Did it reach all of its goals? No.
It failed. I said this already. Oh. Hello, Spain.
Was it exciting? Absolutely. We will not dive deep into the yes or no's on how successful this initial test flight was, but if you want to know more about that, here's an extra long video on that topic. So, what's next for Starship in the context of being a lander for the Artemis program?
Will be then using a depot. It depends. Again, it all depends on the architecture you want to build and your capabilities. You actually have to build massive. You have to do massive trade studies for something like this. The problem I have with a lot of people have with Starship HLS is the fact that you need 16 launches to make this thing work. It's just again, the Saturn V flew 13 times. Yeah, it took me a second. Yeah, Saturn V, no. There's 3 left, they built 15. No, oh gosh, I'm stupid. Launched 13 times. I can't remember anything now, this is not good. Right, you're talking about it's an entire Apollo program's worth of super heavy lift launches to support one landing. It's a weird setup.
Well, the infrastructure needs to reach orbit, and it needs to reach it fast, as Artemis 3 is way closer than Artemis 5. Right now, the mission is planned for December 2025. It is not unlikely that we will see a slip into 2026, but even that only leaves SpaceX with 3 years to fully develop the HLS lander, test it, prove it, and get it ready. That is a tight timeline. This also includes uncrewed lunar
don't say timeline. Don't say that. Elon's gonna accuse you of stuff.
initially planned for 2023. This is very soon, and the big question includes the rocket, life support systems, and other HLS-specific hardware. Just for context, 3 years is about the time between the explosion of the Mk1 Starship prototype and the integrated flight test. Furthermore, space...
Yeah, and as you can see, both didn't work. Oh well. Jeez.
SpaceX needs infrastructure. For example, a clean room, or at least a closed and protected environment. It is unlikely that NASA will allow for the launch of a lander that was not built in a clean environment. So, to support this, SpaceX will need not any clean environment, but an about 70-meter tall. And with the launch taking place from the Cape,
This video was released, what, a month and a half ago? Super can survive the hot staging. It will probably survive it. The question is, how much damage can it take, realistically? How much extra weight is on Super Heavy now? And that's the problem with the problem with changing to hot staging so late in the development is you're now redesigning the vehicle again. So that's the problem with it. It's a weird program that's not going so well. So
they most likely need it there.
What's up with my bitrate and other stuff? I'm just using. It's my old computer. I need to get a new graphics card. I need to get more RAM. This computer is 8 years old, okay? The only thing that's new on it is my hard drive.
This could be part of the Roberts Road expansion, but we have not seen any plans for a Starship or HLS-sized closed space yet. SpaceX is usually great at making infrastructure appear out of nowhere. The question is, will this infrastructure be enough for the standards of NASA? On the good side, in the past, SpaceX has proven over and over again that they can meet the high standards of the agency. But other Starship variants will
okay.
be needed as well.
Just so we're
To
clear,
refuel and
pause.
store the propellant, SpaceX needs.
You know what I learned a few weeks ago? I learned that there was a manhole cover-sized piece of metal stuck on top of the Crew 4 parachutes. And SpaceX has basically pretended that didn't happen. And yes, we have computers 8 years ago. Jeez. I got my punch cards for it somewhere. Gosh. So, yeah, it's... And of course, SpaceX CRS-7 failure was because they couldn't be bothered to do testing of a non-industry part to hold up the helium tanks. So, it's... Yeah, the only reason people think this is because SpaceX just pretends that they don't have problems. They just deny them, so...
Needs to develop a special tanker and depot Starship that will be used to refuel for such missions. The same we said about Blue also is accurate
The scale and scope is different, though. Do you understand that? Don't look at me that way. Don't look at me with those eyes.
for Starship. They need to develop the technology to transfer cryogenic fluids in
Even upgrade bubble memory? I don't know. You work with punch cards? It's cool.
space and do it even faster than the competition from the national team. What could help them is their hardware-rich approach. They have tons of Starship and boosters around.
Yeah, but aren't these already out of date? Again, I said this before. Again, the problem with this is, from what I understand, all of these boosters are out of date. It's a weird program. It's just it's just annoying. Ugh.
Once they figure out how to reach orbit with these, they could prepare such tankers and depots relatively quickly. So everything really depends on Starship flying successfully very soon. Let's talk about Raptor.
Pew!
Which is a cornerstone of this infrastructure. Like BE-4, Raptor is still in development, and recently Elon confirmed some specs about.
See, that test stand was built for a much more interesting engine. That was built for the BA-3200. Would have been the most powerful liquid-fueled rocket engine ever built. Oh, it's a shame. You have a deck of punch cards? That's cool. I have floppy disks somewhere. I also have my old radios and vacuum tubes somewhere. So...
about the third generation of Raptor engines. The bottom line is, they test this engine a lot, but it needs to work soon. And hopefully we will not see multiple Raptor engines failing in a test flight again. We never got concrete confirmation of what exactly killed these engines. Still, the reliability needs to be there, compared to the miracle that SpaceX made happen with the development of the super reliable Merlin engine.
Well, it's because Merlin engines aren't exactly high-performance engines. That's the reason why. Because again, Raptor was a bad design choice for what they want to do, but I think I've said that. I finally said that, didn't I? I don't remember.
Once they figure it out, however, they already have a factory and complex testing structure ready in McGregor to support pumping out these engines as fast as they need.
Okay.
They will also need lunar landing engines, as Raptor would likely create a crater, even throttled down. We need confirmation of the firings of this unknown lander engine or the exact landing they want to pursue, and it is, like BE-7, a bit of a wild card. Come on, SpaceX and Blue, give us some updates. Let's make this controversial. I will look at SpaceX and Blue regarding infrastructure, vehicle, engine, and lander readiness, and judge them based on what we know and my overall impressions. Let me know what you think in the comments. Infrastructure. SpaceX can quickly build infrastructure, and we know that.
Yeah, but, okay, being able to build infrastructure quickly doesn't mean anything if it doesn't work. Got him. Got him. Oh, I need an air horn. Oh, jeez. Yeah, I know my dad used punch cards when he was in college. He has a story where he had a code he was working on. He had his like old, it wasn't a Commodore, I think it was a Commodore in his apartment. It was going to take a week to run, and then something broke on it. I don't remember what, he lost power and he lost his whole thing. So he decided to go into, I think it's Wilson Library, because they have the Cray Computing Institute there. And he put it in, and it gave it right back out. The answer, at least, yeah. Yeah. The problem with the SpaceX development program is that it seems that they're cranking out stuff before they can really test it. So they're building, it's like, oh, look, we've built this thing. Our old models work, at least, I guess. I don't know. So, don't stop looking at me like that.
But looking at the necessary cape structures at this moment, Blue has an impressive campus, with
That's
the
true.
launch pad for New Glenn being closer to ready than 39A
Yes.
for Starship, and the fact that Roberts Road
Exactly.
is still in a very rough build state, I will give this first very controversial point to Blue Origin. Blue
Got him.
might be slightly ahead here. However, SpaceX might be the most fitting company in the world to close that gap of missing Cape infrastructure as fast as
Well, as long as NASA lets them build it.
they could. They already built it once in Boca. Vehicle readiness. Here the point goes obviously to SpaceX. The flight test did not fully succeed. But
Well, okay. I'll give them that. That Starship is definitely farther along, but it's an awful architecture. But it's just, yeah. It's see again, as I said before. I think for the first lander, it should have been okay. You have 45 metric tons and SLS. Put something on that. We'll crank extra $2 billion into SLS production, so we get 2 per year, and then, yeah. I think I follow him. I follow one guy on Twitter who works on HLS who's very more antagonistic. So, yeah. So, you made it, Face of Sarcasm. You're finally here. Make jokes. Make jokes, podcast boy. Gosh.
but they have an integrated hardware on the stand. That is not the case for the New Glenn right now.
Well, they made. Well, who knows? Blue Origin probably like dug a massive trench and have been simulating building New Glenn in there just to mess with people. What about my microphone? What's wrong with my microphone, Face? It's right here. Look at it.
Clear point for me. SpaceX having the vehicle in an almost ready state might be their biggest advantage for lander readiness. New Glenn might be further ahead than we know, but we just don't know. So, hey Blue, please surprise me and roll out something cool. Engine readiness.
Oh.
This is a tie for me. On the one hand, SpaceX has a huge production facility for Raptors and tests them
Yeah. It doesn't matter how many you make if they don't work.
5 times every day. On the other hand, Blue Origin has built a BE-4 that is good enough for ULA. And
Yeah.
ULA usually has high quality standards.
Yeah.
The lunar engines are hard to
Wait,
judge.
usually, I mean, I know the top of the Centaur dome was a bit too small, but, jeez. Oh yeah, they did get that, didn't they? Yeah, the RS-25E is going through that. That's cool.
As both companies are very silent about them. So it's hard to include them in the overall picture. Lander readiness. Here comes the big unknown.
Ooh,
Both
okay.
companies have yet to discuss their actual lander.
That's
the
true.
needed critical systems and the life support. We all know they will need it, but we must find out where they are developing it. I will still give this point barely to
What?
SpaceX, as they have more experience with the critical infrastructure needed for space travel. Why? Because of Dragon.
Yeah, apparently SpaceX had to have their hands held through most of Dragon development, but, you know, it's... Yeah, the thing with Starliner's problems, because I know people are going to bring that up, is that Boeing said, "Oh, we can do it ourselves," and whereas SpaceX said, "Yeah, help us every way you possibly can." So, yeah, I'll keep going.
Dragon needs life support, shielding, and more to work in space. So SpaceX did all of this already. Of
With NASA holding their hands the whole way.
course, flying to the moon is different than flying to Leo.
That's true.
But they have some experience. On the other hand, Blue Origin has only flown the suborbital New Shepard so far, which does not need complex radiation shielding and life support. Hence, a small point here and an overall advantage for SpaceX. Let me know if you agree with this or if I need to correct something. Let's close this with a note. Of course, it is fun to compare these landers, but in the end, both are part of the same venture, the Artemis program, a program that will bring us humans back to the moon and allow younger people, like me, to witness a moon landing for
How old is this guy? Because I'm 27 and a half. Yeah, Boeing should have definitely asked for their hands to be held by NASA, because, I mean, as you can see, that they're still being delayed, but, you know. Yeah. Again, I'd rather NASA check everyone else's homework than lose a crew, you know? Again, yeah, it's gonna cost more and take longer, but the most expensive part of any space program will always be funerals. No matter what you think.
the first time in our life. Both excite and inspire me, and I'm happy we have both around. In this case, competition is good for everybody.
Okay.
as it ensures both companies want to develop the best product to get the edge in showing that their lander is the best. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you liked this piece about the lander. We will stay on top of Artemis news as humanity approaches a new moon landing. Would you like the same comparison with the US program versus China? Let us know in the comments.
Why is this not changing? Oh, there we go. Alrighty. Okay. I don't know. What was the next one that was recommended? I was recommended some things. Yeah, and that's the thing. I think a lot of people want to apply space to a lot of different things, but it doesn't really work, right? Oh, but the railroads, yeah, they were just doing what horses and wagons were doing beforehand. The same with airplanes. They were just replacing ships and trains and other infrastructure that we already use. We don't really use space for much. So I'd still say we're still neo-nascent, but yeah, it's Enterprise. All right, what else do people recommend I watch? Okay. Well, okay. Let's see what else was recommended to me. Okay. Oh, Angry Astronaut. Let's go to him. Yes, let's go to the... There we go.
Good morning.
Have you watched this one already? SpaceX hasn't flown enough for that to happen, but you know. Alrighty. Okay, does this have closed captioning? Yes, it does. Alright, and oh, I forgot my sunglasses. Ah, wait. Go back to live. There we go. I gotta play him at 2x speed. Sorry, Angry. You just sound better. Where are every astronaut's credentials? I don't know. I thought he was like a programmer, maybe? I think that's what he was. I don't know. Alrighty. No, come on, play. Spiel.
And welcome to the Angry Astronaut. So,
Hi.
Once again, I wish I could bring everybody better news on what the NASA Office of Inspector General may have discovered about SLS, but every time they do any sort of investigation into this troubled rocket, they...
Why is my thing going so... Okay, again, this is my computer. My computer is, awful. Okay, it's ancient. Just so we're clear. That's why it's running so badly. Oh, no, this is okay.
they find more and more problems. And usually those problems come in the form of expense. And once again, we're looking at a project that's going billions of dollars over budget. A project that was already...
wait, yeah, it was went over, it's not $6 billion over budget, they're just buying new hardware. That's where the $6 billion came from. That's what he's complaining about. They're just building, yeah, look, we're buying new engines. Oh, there we go.
already billions of dollars over budget, and now has racked up another $6 billion worth of overcharges. So how is it getting to this point? What is causing this rocket to be so damned expensive? Is it just a matter of corruption? Is it the kind of contract that NASA signed with Boeing and others in the first place? The kind of contract that essentially allows a company to go way the hell over budget if the project demands it, and they can essentially get away with it. Not only do they get away with it, they also get paid bonuses for doing a horrible job. Well, this time, and this is something that we've talked about before, it comes in the form of engines. These RS-25s, these new RS-25s, which are supposed to be improved, but the improvements are coming in the form of manufacturing techniques and 3D printing things that are supposed to be improving the efficiency and the cost of the manufacture of these things. Well, this is where the additional expense is coming.
Also, I would turn down the video quality. Oops, nope, that was, oops. Oopsie. There we go. So we're turning on the video quality, see if that, oh. He's just a programmer. Again, if you want a hot tip is, if you find deranged opinions on a lot of things, you'll most likely find a programmer behind it. They've never had to bend tin. They don't know what any of these numbers mean. But, okay. So, again, I'm sorry right now, my computer is dying. Is going to die. If it dies, that'll be interesting. Kind of budget freeze. Oh, I've heard they're cutting budget on things. Well, it'll slow it down again. So.
Is where the additional expense is coming from. The RS-25 is a fantastic engine. The
Yeah.
way it was done in the old days, and apparently whatever improvements they're introducing right now, which by the way make the engine to where it can no longer be reused, well, it seems
Okay, but you're throwing it in the ocean. We're not making a reusable launch vehicle here, Angry. We don't need... You can engineer for expendability then. Ugh, jeez.
to also be making it insanely expensive. Is Congress going to continue supporting this project, given the state of affairs, given
Yes.
how much of the taxpayers' money has been plowed
Yeah, here's the thing though. This taxpayer money doesn't go in an incinerator. It goes into the communities and the towns where all of this is happening. Like, Huntsville, where I live, right? That money's going back into the community. But, whatever, he doesn't understand that.
out into this useless thing, and how much
It went to the moon perfectly on its first flight, buddy. What happened with the other one? It's in the Gulf of Mexico.
more money can the taxpayers be expected to spend on it before we finally get sick of the whole thing and somebody pulls the plug? And also, is there a way to bring the cost down? Is there any way that the next investigation
Fly it more. Yeah, seriously, I've actually built... If we built... Again, I built a better cost estimation model for launch vehicles, by the way, which is... that if you fly twice, you'll just cut the price in half. Instantly. But... I don't know.
from the NASA Office of Inspector General can actually show a reduction in cost rather than another increase? Well, the answer is yes. There are ways to get this rocket more affordable, and I'm going to lay all of that out for you, along with the ugly details from the NASA OIG in just a moment.
No, the cost model isn't available because I built it for my own personal rocket plan that's going to debut, I don't know, like next year, but...
Now, SLS advocates would say that it's difficult to argue with success in an environment
Yeah, that's true, isn't it?
where the first launch of a new rocket usually ends in failure, and that applies, of course, with Starship as well. To see SLS perform as well as it did during the Artemis 1 mission, well, that justifies the expense, or so some people might argue, although honestly, I don't think very many people would argue that anymore, and it's the engines that have made this contract so expensive. By 2025, the NASA Office of Inspector General projects that SLS is going to run $23.8 billion out of a $93 billion total budget for the Artemis program, and here are the contracts that NASA signed with Northrop Grumman and Aerojet Rocketdyne for their engines. First of all, for the boosters, $4.4 billion, and then booster production and operations contract, $3.2 billion, and that's from June 2020 till December 2031, and then adaptation on the
Yeah, because engines cost money? Again, if it's 2020 to 2031, that's not that much.
RS-25 engines, $2.1 billion, and then RS-25 restart and production, $3.6 billion. You would think with these enormous budgets that these companies would be able to build these engines and hit their budgetary contracts, but that's not going to happen. Now the Office of Inspector General projects that these budgets are not nearly enough to cover the amount being charged by these companies. At least another $6 billion are going to be charged before the project is completed, and this is how the cost increases were broken down. The most significant increase...
Also, those people looking at the launch, they aren't... they're not going, how much did that cost? They're going, that thing's going to the moon! Which is awesome.
According to the report, was related to Northrop Grumman's booster contract, which grew from $1.8 billion to $2.5 billion under the Constellation program. And this is another complication, by the way. This program has changed so many times while these boosters have been redesigned that this has led to some of these increases. But nevertheless, it certainly doesn't explain all of it. So it went from $2.5 billion to $4.4 billion under Artemis. And then between June 2006 and September 2020, Aerojet's adaptation contract grew from $1.1 billion to...
Yeah, well, if you're including Ares stuff, there's a lot of money in there that they had to do. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing, too. Yeah. Oh yeah, SLS is a lot like... Yeah, SLS is, in a way, shocking that you built a super heavy lift launch vehicle on a flat budget. So, it's actually quite an achievement.
$1.5 billion, and then later to $2.1 billion. And then the RS-25 restart and production contract grew from $1.2 billion to $3.6
Oh wait, restart? What does that mean?
billion, tripling the budget for this particular part of the contract. And as a result of these cost and schedule increases under these contracts, the OIG is calculating that NASA is going to spend $13.1 billion through 2031 on boosters and engines. $13.1 billion. To put that into perspective, that's more than double the cost that NASA is spending on the Blue Origin and SpaceX HLS systems combined.
Well, yeah, because Blue Origin and SpaceX are forking over half the money themselves. Flat budget. So for a launch vehicle development, to develop anything new, your so if the SRB is time, and this axis here is money, your classical budget for developing something new looks like this. It's a big hump. Because you gotta do all the engineering, all the test work, all the setting up the production lines, you gotta build all of this. So it's gonna cost a lot more money up front to do this, but then once it starts working, once you start hitting production, you're not gonna do as much research and development. You're just gonna validate and verify your systems, and then all you really need to do is just support the vehicle production, vehicle maintenance, right? The basics. But with SLS, we were just given the space shuttle budget to develop this thing. So instead of being a hump like it should have been, it was more just flat. You're given this much money per year to develop a rocket. That's it.
Which, by the way, both require their own rockets in order to be able to deploy them, which means the engines for SLS are costing more than an entire launch system and an entire human.
Well, again, specific money for SpaceX was specific towards HLS from what I understood. So
Landing system provided by two companies put together. And even if they had gone with, say, Dynetics, which was a more expensive solution because Jeff Bezos wasn't providing tons of his own money, or Elon for that matter, it still would have been far more expensive than the entire solution.
Okay, but here's the thing though: the Dynetics lander had problems with like crew safety. They weren't going to get picked because of that. I read this thing.
That would have required rockets as well as a lander. So how the hell did all of this happen? Well, one of the obvious reasons is the fact that NASA didn't go for a fixed price contract as they have been doing lately, allowing these companies to run insanely over budget without a great...
Because then you won't be able to build launch vehicles. No one would bid on them. That's the problem. No one would bid on, especially again for something like SLS. You pretty much can't. There's no commercial contract for that. You can't commercialize it really. It's a non-commercial launch vehicle. There are things where you can do fixed budgets, fixed price or whatever contract, and there's things you can't. Something like SLS is probably something you can't.
Deal of management or oversight, and also NASA's procurement staff is simply inadequate to deal with contracts of this size according to the report, which makes NASA very easy to take advantage of, especially if you're dealing with companies that don't have a great deal of business ethics practices, which apparently include Northrop Grumman and Aerojet Rocketdyne. Like many government departments, the procurement division for NASA has limited staff size and experience, limited supervisory review, inadequate procurement management, and a poor contract definition. In other words, they had a hard time establishing exactly what these companies were supposed to be building, because keep in mind the project did change several times. Now that's something you can't blame on these companies, but nevertheless it has contributed to a very significant cost increase, although in my opinion the majority of the cost increase is simply due to these companies taking advantage of a cost-plus structure.
Okay.
When you want to hear something that's going to make you really angry, after failing to meet cost targets and after failing to meet production targets as far as timelines are concerned, what kind of ratings did these companies receive from NASA? Well, from 2015 to 2019, NASA rated Northrop Grumman as very good and excellent, despite the agency paying $253 million in cost overruns associated.
Yeah, because again, it depends on what they're doing. They got the engines to work. Ah, jeez. Well, yeah, again, golden rule, when you see people like this talking about these things who've never really read about them and only really focus on one thing, you'll discover that there's a lot of lapses in judgment. They don't understand how things work. Again, it's kind of like when the Starship failure happened and people were talking about how the development program for Starship probably isn't working. And they said, but then it would cost more. And the SpaceX can't do that. It's like, well, but should you pay more money for something that works? That's the fundamental issue here. Why is my cabling like this? Oh, jeez. Yeah, well, again, Randy, you failed to understand. SpaceX is magical. So,
with their work during this time frame. So let me say that again. They just got $250 million in bonuses for performing very good or excellent during this time frame, even though they went way the hell over budget and didn't get their job done remotely on time. And this is
again, remotely, again, yeah, I don't know.
Sort of thing that's been happening a lot.
Put yourself, okay. My bias is towards engineering. With mathematics, you'll do a lot of programming. With engineering, you can bend things and have people tell you you're wrong. Or if you get to do what I get to do, you get to tell people they're wrong. So I think with mathematics you can do a lot, but it's mostly end up like programming, statistical work probably. I don't know much more than that. With mechanical engineering, you can make refrigerators. Why is this not live? Oh, jeez. Oh, you like programming? Oh, you're a freak. Oh, well, your first 2 years of college will basically be the same, roughly. So,
In addition to that, Aerojet Rocketdyne received a very good performance during its production timeframe, even though all it managed to do was complete renovating 5 of the 16 Shuttle-era RS-25 engines during
and restart production and getting them to work again. Again, buddy, you don't understand how this works.
this time, and going over budget in the process. $29 million worth of award fees over the life of the contract, even though they failed to meet cost, schedule, or technical performance requirements, which, of course, according to the OIG, means they should have gotten an unsatisfactory score. Boy, that's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it? But apparently not according to government.
Well, here's the thing, though. OIG doesn't understand how rocket development works. NASA does. So, just,
Agencies with unlimited funding, or at least government agencies that behave like they have unlimited funding. Once again, it's obvious to see that NASA's procurement division is being taken advantage of by companies who don't seem to be very interested in the long-term success of the program. So what have they actually managed to achieve?
No, they're what? No, they're absolutely convinced. They want the program to see. It's you don't understand how this works. I'm just kidding.
With the engines that are coming after the Shuttle-era RS-25s? Well, given the fact that we're not going to be reusing the engines anymore, and I find that to be incredibly frustrating.
How could you can't reuse them though? You'd have to rebuild SLS. You'd have to build an entirely new launch vehicle, which you don't want to pay for. So we're stuck with SLS. Okay, bud? Ah, jeez.
The idea is to reduce the production costs as much as possible.
Yeah.
To be fair, they implemented a wide variety of different processes to try to bring the cost down, such as applying additive manufacturing, also known as 3D printing, reducing the number of parts in the new production engine, and using more efficient manufacturing practices borrowed from Aerojet Rocketdyne's RS-68 engine development for the Delta IV. And the end result of that was to reduce the cost per engine from $104.5 million to $70.5 million, in theory. But the cost required in order to get to this point completely wiped out all of those savings and then some.
Okay, we're gonna skip that. You
$2.3
can't do
billion
math.
worth of total costs and fees identified by the NASA Office of Inspector General associated with these efforts that are going to completely wipe out all of the cost savings on the RS-25s and actually make them more expensive than perfectly good reusable engines that we used in the past.
Making reusable RS-25s again would actually cost more than that, though, Angry. If you understood anything about this subject, you would know this, but you don't, because you're an amateur who thinks he knows more than people, because you have the right opinions on certain subjects. That's the only reason clowns like this are allowed to survive on YouTube, without being mocked. I'm going to talk about this when I talk about apogee. So, yeah, it's because I'm gonna respond to Apogee finally in August, and one of the things he does in the response that I want to focus on is he does a market analysis for Starship, and we've looked at this before, and it's actually one of the worst I've ever seen. He might as well just made things up, but I don't know.
So although the Office of Inspector General made a number of recommendations, it really comes down to two things. Number one, they want to take the 18 remaining RS-25 production engines and try to put them from a cost-plus contract to a fixed-price contract. That, at the very least, should be done. And in addition to that, to update the procurement offices to add the necessary staff and include best practices for this department in order to make sure that these sorts of abuses don't occur again. But really, this was the full scope of what the OIG could recommend, given the limited scope of what they work on. There are other things that can be done to improve this program because, frankly, with all of these cost overruns, and with cost overruns that are no...
Well, here's the thing, though. So, Randy, again, there's a difference. See, when you do amateur stuff, you got the caveat I always give is if you're someone like Angry, you only look at one thing. But if you're an amateur, you should try to read anything and everything. You know? Right? Right? It's the problem with amateur research, again, do your own research only works if you're willing to recognize your own limitations. You're only that you got to look at everything and anything and everything and try to build your own version of judgment schemes. So, wait, really? I don't care about that. I mean, I pay my taxes, so I'm invested in SLS. So, you know.
Going to be happening again with this program. I think that Artemis is extremely vulnerable right now to cancellation, especially given the new compromise that was recently struck between the president and the House that's going to cap the spending for all government departments except for military spending, which is apparently the most well-funded department that the government has. And I believe in a strong military, by the way, but I believe that NASA should be able to take advantage of similar increases to their budget, given the importance of Artemis and our ability to reach the moon before China. But what do I know?
Yeah, we'll reach the moon before China. We have the launch infrastructure in place. See this? See, this is going to the moon late next year or early 2025. So, So what's funny, Randy, is when I was looking up alternate propellants for OTRAG, my better OTRAG, I found something you posted in 2013 discussing this. So you pop up in a lot of places.
No, in any event, regardless of what happens here, NASA needs to find ways to bring their costs down, not to continue to experience cost increases with the next NASA OIG report. And here are a couple of ways to do this. The obvious way, of course, is to switch SLS over to Starship, but that's not going to happen in
Okay, so I just, I'm gonna turn on my air conditioning for a second. Oh, I'm alive. Don't worry. I'm fine. It was. It's just. Yeah, it was alternate propellant. It was propellants for space startups. That was the forum that was talking about that. It's from like 2013. So. Yeah, again, but here's the thing, Face. Starship is magic. And it'll magically work. So, okay. Do we really need to keep watching this? I don't want to keep watching this. This is painful. I know angry. It's just my problem with stuff like this is he doesn't understand what any of this is, but he doesn't realize he doesn't understand this. It's annoying. I don't want to keep going. We're gonna go with the next one. I asked for some recommendations, so that's. Look, Enterprise. Look at this wonderful thing, Enterprise. Look at that. Oh, don't select those. Oh gosh. Okay, let's. What are the other recommendations? Okay. That's really old SLS versus Starship. Let's see. Oh, I remember Everyday Astronaut did a video on refurbishment versus reusability, which is.
Hi, it's me, Tim.
Hi, Tim. This is really old. When was this? 5 years ago. Of course, I say that 5 years ago. Wow, oh gosh. Hi, Tim. Hey, wait, Oh no, we have the same glasses. Oh, well, time to die. No, we're not gonna watch any Joe Rogan. That's not gonna end well. Okay. Yeah, well, technically, I got these glasses in April, so technically I stole his. But, so this was because this is an argument that's been popping up when we talk about the shuttle sometimes. So, and Apogee hasn't made anything recently, so that's kind of, ooh, we'll look at some engine tests after this. Yeah.
Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut.
Hi.
SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket, the world's first reusable rocket. Wait, no it's not. Do you remember the space shuttle? It had those solid rocket boosters and the orbiter, which were both reusable, weren't they? Well, today we're going to talk about why the space shuttle failed to actually be reusable.
gonna start doing angry ASMR. Everyday astronaut's wrong. Stop looking at me like that every day. Yeah, so the big problem here is, so the definition of reusability, what do you think the definition of reusability is? I'll show you my pintle injector on my OnlyFans, just so you know. Unless you're under the age of 18, then no, I didn't say that. So the problem with what he's going to do, and I know this is going to happen, is he's going to decide that reusability doesn't count because they had to take apart the shuttle and inspect parts of it. But here's the problem. This is the golden rule. It flew again. Those parts flew again. Also, the first reused spacecraft was technically Gemini 2. So, well, let's do this.
And wound up being described with a more accurate word. Refurbishable. People often cite the shortcomings of the space.
Falcon 9's refurbished, buddy. I haven't seen this, by the way, because I just... 1.5. Okay.
Space shuttle and are quick to point it to SpaceX's claims of the Falcon 9 booster being reusable. So today we're going to take a look at what it takes to get a space shuttle operational between flights, what it takes to get a Falcon 9 operational between flights, and why SpaceX's first stage booster takes much less of a beating than the space shuttle did. We'll also do a quick reminder of what technology SpaceX added to their Block 5 booster to hopefully achieve their goal of making a rapidly reusable rocket that can truly be reused 10 times before needing...
Okay. So the problem here, oh, it could have been. Well, you talk about reusability. It's like, oh, this model rocket I built in high school was reused. I had to change the engine every time, but...
Any kind of serious refurbishment. Let's get started. Reusable is definitely the hottest buzzword in the new space industry. If you don't know why a vehicle being reusable is such a massive game changer, may I suggest checking out my video, Why Does Falcon Heavy Matter, to help get a good perspective on why reusability matters. But long story short, the margins to get stuff to space are so thin, it takes a massive rocket to put anything substantial up there. So unfortunately, there's just too little margins left over to add additional hardware. That
does make you a terrible person, Kevin. I don't like Everyday Astronaut, but I don't want him to die. That's really rude and very... That's not good. Don't do that. I don't like Everyday Astronaut for helping foster the personality cult around Elon Musk, but I don't wish any harm on the guy. Okay, don't do that.
To make a rocket reusable. This makes spaceflight extremely, extremely expensive. As in, so expensive, we're hoping to someday see costs come down to just $1,000 per kilogram. Yeah, imagine those shipping costs down here on Earth. Hi there, I'm...
Why do I want a post-it note?
Calling to get a quote for some new tires for my 2011 Hyundai Elantra. Yes, of course it's the GT model. I do some really cool drifting in it, so that's why the tires are bad. How much would the new tires be?
Oh, Jesus Christ, he doesn't understand how this works either. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, okay. Well, hey, look, I got me a Hawaiian shirt, so that's... Oh, jeez. What delay do I have? Oh, that's cool. So...
$400? How much for shipping? $36,000!
And that would actually be a steal compared to the historically astronomical prices of getting space hardware into space. Even the cheapest dollar to kilogram ratio is around the $3,000 per kilogram mark, thanks to the Falcon 9 and the Falcon Heavy. It's a good thing rocket delivery isn't the standard here on Earth. So...
Well, yeah, that's true. Again, the space industry is mercurial and it's hard to understand, but... So...
Here's where reusability comes in. It's honestly fundamental. Of course!
No, it's not. Oh, jeez.
Why throw away super expensive multi-million-dollar engines and a massive fuselage and all that extra stuff when you could just reuse it, right? I mean, duh.
You could just don't make expensive engines. Why do you have all the plumbing? So, Why have all the plumbing? Why have expensive fuselages, Tim? There's another way of doing this. Stop looking at me like that. Oh gosh, Tim becomes because again he makes some fun videos. Again, it's not. Again, I don't really have much against him. I mean, he's definitely fallen into the personality cult, and he's definitely kind of out of his depth on several of these issues. But for the basics, he's fine. He's got energy to him. He's got a style. There's a reason he became popular. Yeah, it's.
Well, that was the original idea for the space shuttle. Believe it or not, NASA was seeking a reusable launch vehicle before we even put humans on the moon. The original studies began in 1968, some 10 months before
This sounds vaguely familiar for some reason.
Neil Armstrong famously took the first steps on the moon. As a matter of fact, one of the first people to fly the space shuttle, John Young, was walking on the moon when he got news of the shuttle.
This looks like a good time for some good news here. The House passed the space budget gets to be 277 to 60, which includes a vote for the shuttle. Wonderful. Tony, again, I'll say it with absolute. I'm proud to be an American. I'll tell you, what a program, and what a place, and what an experience. Yeah, and I'll say it too. So my country needs that shuttle mighty bad.
So with all the excitement leading up to the shuttle, fast forward 50 years to today, and the space shuttle has kind of a bad taste in our mouths. It wound up being terribly expensive, pretty dangerous, and actually more expensive than just about any other way to get into space.
Hey, Trunnions. If you read the media resources kit for STS-7 that I linked for the latest end of mission episode, they actually give you diagrams of these. It's really cool. Yeah, but if you focus on one thing, the shuttle doesn't look good. But if you focus on the broad picture of a sustained human space flight for 30-ish years, the shuttle was really good, except for after Challenger and, Columbia.
Although it could do things that no other launch vehicle could do. So with some of the greatest minds working on the shuttle, why did it fail its promise of bringing the cost down? Is SpaceX doomed to repeat history, or has a lot changed in 50 years? So first, let's look at the recovery methods of each system. They're quite different. The space shuttle utilized both parachutes and a lifting body to recover hardware. Let's go in order of what was recovered. So starting with the solid rocket boosters, which were jettisoned around 2 minutes into flight. The boosters separate while traveling around 4,800 kilometers an hour or 3,000 miles an hour at an altitude of around 45 kilometers or 30 miles. And due to their velocity, they continue to coast upward to their highest point of around 65 kilometers or 40 miles. Just a fun note, that does mean the SRBs never actually make it above the Kármán line or the commonly agreed upon boundary of space. So keep that in mind. The boosters fall.
Wait, what? Why are we not talking about?
Fall back through the atmosphere and start a sequence of parachutes at exactly 4,786 meters or 15,704 feet. Eventually, after a pilot chute and a drogue chute, the three main parachutes deploy and splish-splash the booster down relatively softly in the ocean. The orbiter, on the other hand, is traveling much, much faster, and recovery, like all orbital things, is a lot hotter. About 1 hour before touchdown, the orbiter turns around and faces away from its direction of travel, or prograde. It fires up its orbital maneuvering system, or OMS, and slows down 1%. Yep, that's it. Only about...
What percentage of launch cost is profit? That is a good question. We don't know. The only company, again, it's all proprietary, so... Oh, yeah, and with the pre-Challenger stuff, if you read Mike Mullane's autobiography, they got 9 launches per year, and they were running all day, every day. The shuttle would land, and they pretty much just rip it apart for parts for the next one. It just wouldn't. It was unsustainable. A disaster was going to happen, unfortunately. So, yeah.
1%, and that's enough to lower its orbit from 480 kilometers or 300 miles down to just 45 kilometers or 28 miles at its lowest point. That's crazy. The orbiter then turns back around so it can re-enter at about a 40-degree angle. Now it's time for the atmosphere to do its work. The orbiter is absolutely cruising at this point. It's still traveling around 27,000 kilometers an hour or 17,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
The orbiter begins to hit air molecules and starts to build up a ton of friction and therefore a ton of heat. The orbiter will reach temperatures of 1,650 degrees Celsius or 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Ouch. But luckily, the orbiter is covered with 4 different types of thermal protection. It has reinforced carbon-carbon on the leading edges. Then there are between 24,177 and 31,088 tiles, depending on the orbiter, on the underside and front of the vehicle. Then there is white Nomex blankets on the upper payload bay doors, the upper wing and fuselage, and a few white surface tiles for low temperature areas as well. For 12 minutes, the shuttle had so much hot ionized gases surrounding the vehicle, it caused a full radio blackout.
Well,
Eventually,
that happens on all space missions, though. That's just kind of the thing.
after several minutes of atmospheric drag and some computer-guided S-turns, the shuttle bleeds off a lot of its velocity. Once it's about 40 kilometers or 25 miles downrange, the commander drops the nose to minus 20 degrees. That's almost 7 times steeper than a commercial airliner, and it's still traveling 20 times faster. Finally, the shuttle lands like a traditional jetliner, only a little quicker, touching down at 350 kilometers an hour or 220 miles per hour
It's a bit
on a
fast.
4.5 kilometer or 2.8 mile long runway. That runway is actually so long that there's over a 1.5 meter or 5 feet in relative height difference between the ends of the runway due to the curve of the Earth.
Wait, that's not true. Earth's flat. Oh. Oh, geez. That's where he's going. Oh, gosh. Yeah, again, he's not... The problem is he doesn't really understand what he's getting at here. And again, like with reusability, it's not the be-all, end-all. It's really case-dependent. When I remake my video on how to build a low-cost launch vehicle, I'm actually going to talk about that.
It's crazy. It's quite the journey. Welcome home, Space Shuttle. So now let's do a quick rundown on how Falcon 9 is recovered. I've covered this topic a few times.
It's a helium balloon, according to conspiracy theorists.
Depth. So if you have any questions remaining, check out my video, How SpaceX Lands the Falcon 9. At around 2 minutes and 40 seconds into flight, the Falcon 9 shuts down its main engines, called MECO, or main engine cutoff. It coasts for a moment, and then the first stage lets go of the second stage for stage separation. At this point, the Falcon 9 is traveling up to 8,000 kilometers an hour, almost 5,000 miles an hour, at an altitude of 65 kilometers or 40 miles. Quick note, that's about twice as fast as the Space Shuttle's rocket boosters. The first stage quickly performs a flip maneuver with its nitrogen thrusters to point its engines prograde. Then, depending on the mission, the booster may ignite 3 of its 9 engines and do a boost back burn if it's going to land back at land. But there might not be enough margins left over to do the boost back burn. In that case, it's omitted and the Falcon 9 continues on its ballistic trajectory, away from the launch pad and heads towards the drone ship that's been precisely placed based on each mission profile. But in either case, the booster will coast up to its highest point, typically over the Kármán line or 100 kilometers or 62 miles. In other words, the booster gets to hang out in space for a minute or so. Lucky
Oh,
us, yo.
jeez.
Around 55 kilometers or 34 miles in altitude, the Falcon 9 will light up 3 of its 9 Merlin engines as it re-enters the atmosphere. It does this to slow itself down, and it actually creates a literal force field around itself so it can survive re-entry. After around 20 seconds of re-entry burn, the booster scrubs off 30 to 40% of its velocity, which is enough to withstand the remaining heat as the atmosphere gets thicker and thicker. The atmosphere will then take off another 60 to 70% of the remaining velocity until the booster is only traveling about 1,000 kilometers an hour or 620 miles an hour. Then it lights up 1 or 3 of its Merlin engines to perform the final landing burn, which it needs to time perfectly. Even with just 1 of the 9 engines running at its minimum throttle, the booster still has too much thrust to hover. So if the vehicle stops before it hits the ground, it'll actually start going back up. Yeah, that's not good. This needs to be perfect.
It would be funny, though.
A maneuver called the hover slam or suicide burn. Then the landing legs deploy and the Falcon 9 softly touches down. Well, hopefully. So before we move on, let's really quick remind you why the Falcon 9 doesn't use parachutes like the Space Shuttle SRBs did.
It's not a cuck. I don't know. Hello, Joff. Ready? Yeah, rapid reuse doesn't. Yeah, it's like, why do you need rapid reuse? We don't. The only thing that SpaceX is launching consistently is their own payload, which isn't making enough money for what it sounds like. So, yeah, it's again mission requirements. It's these we do have the same classes. I think yeah, because mine are Ray-Bans, and I think his are Ray-Bans as well. All part of the plan.
Well, there's a few reasons, and I'm just going to breeze through these since I've done many videos about this, and I probably still need to do a more dedicated and updated video about it. So here's Everyday Astronaut's top 7 reasons why SpaceX doesn't use parachutes to land the Falcon 9. 1. SpaceX tried to use parachutes on the first 2 Falcon 9 missions to recover the booster. Unfortunately, the booster was going about twice as fast as the SRBs, and the parachutes couldn't survive the extra forces. 2.
Makes
The
sense.
rocket already has engines capable of slowing down. Why not use them?
That's a good point.
Does the helicopter need a parachute to land? No, it has an engine and a propeller already. 3. You can't land a large rocket on Mars or the moon with a parachute. The atmosphere is too thin or
Not going there.
non-existent. So you'd better start practicing propulsive landings now and get good at them. 4. The rocket needs to slow down before it hits the atmosphere to survive re-entry anyway. Remember that whole re-entry burn thing? Yeah, a parachute can't work very well before it's in the atmosphere, so rocket engines are the only way to go. 5. Parachutes in the supporting system that would allow the fuselage to get stretched and not just compressed would just add otherwise dead weight. 6. Parachutes all
You're already again. The problem is reusability adds dead weight no matter what you're doing. So again, it's not. It's again. The problem is you got to do trade studies. You got to make charts and things. Oh yeah, I thought they tried on the Falcon 1 as well. So who knows? The problem is SpaceX is so secretive that we don't know.
although steerable, are not nearly as precise as grid fins, cold gas thrusters, and an engine gimbal. SpaceX is finding this out the hard way as they try to catch their fairings under steerable parafoils. 7. Splashing down is bad. Salt water and precise liquid rocket engines don't mix very well, so that's actually a great place to transition.
Oh no, he's transitioning? That's woke of you. Again, ever heard of Bob Truax every day? See, give me that face. Isn't Copenhagen Suborbitals using a balloon for their? I think that's what they're using for their Spica rocket. That'll be cool.
Okay, so now that we recovered the reusable parts of the space shuttle and the first stage of the Falcon 9, what did they do to prepare them for reflight? Let's
Give a big prep talk, right? You on the shoulders, you can do it, buddy. You can do it. You can do it. That's what they were doing.
start with the space shuttle. What did it take to get one back to the launch pad? After splashdown, the boosters were sealed up by scuba divers with a giant plug, where they drained the water so it could be towed back to Kennedy Space Center. Each booster required a crew of 18 for ocean recovery. The space shuttle obviously had 2 boosters, so that's 36 people on booster recovery. Then the boosters are disassembled and sent out to Promontory, Utah to be cleaned, paint stripped, repainted, inspected, and reloaded with solid propellant. Then they go back to Kennedy.
That's some good looking ice cream right there. I want some of that. Yeah. I don't know, but I haven't followed much of Copenhagen Suborbitals recently, but yeah. Yeah, it's not that, it's, again, well, it also depends on what you're doing. It's, again, you have to do the trades on, hey, where will this end up, but, oh, yeah. Didn't they also get one of those, like a TRW, like 250,000 pound thrust pressure fed engine? They just left to collect dust, pulled off the tarp, dusted it off, and fired it. I swear that, I think that's in Leo on the Cheap that they talked about that. So, you could end up with a Wikipedia page with that much danger ice cream. That's what you could end up with.
Space Center for assembly at the United Space Alliance Assembly and Refurbishment Facility. I like the name of that place. The 4 segments in each booster are then mated to a new igniter, forward segment, nose cap, aft skirt, and frustum, whatever that is. So basically, just the casing was actually truly reused. I definitely think refurbished is the right word here, considering they stripped it down to the bare metal each time and take it to a place called the Refurbishment Facility.
You refurbish your car too, buddy. I can get my oil change when I get back. Oh yeah, there was. Actually, I do want to talk about the TRW pressure feds. Those are pretty cool. Like the LRB studies are really neat. But what's my favorite rocket? Oh, don't ask me that. I don't know. It'll depend. I don't know. I do like the Titan 3 a lot. I like Titan 3. I like Delta 2. I'd have to. I should make a video on that. Yeah, well, you end up with a Wikipedia page because that much you could make it. The difference between a solid rocket motor and a pipe bomb is which end is open. So, just sort of clear. So I keep pausing Everyday Astronaut where he looks like he's giving me a look, like you're saying that. So Oh gosh, yes, yeah.
Okay, so the boosters aren't at all what I'd call reusable.
They flew again. They flew again, buddy. You're just redefining reusable because you don't like that. Oh, jeez.
But how about the orbiter? What's it take to actually get that thing reflying? After touching down, a highly trained
A
crew of
lot.
150 people and 25 specially designed vehicles head out to intercept the vehicle. They
Look, they got the airline coming in to get them,
do safety checks for explosives and toxic gases, help the crew exit the orbiter, and eventually they tow it to the orbiter processing facility. Once inside the 2,700 square meter...
Astro Rocket 4? It's okay. It's obvious that building a small sat launch vehicle is kind of a challenge, and obviously Rocket 3 wasn't working because they just couldn't be bothered to do full development on it, but... it's... I'll have to see what it flies. Also, I learned this. So the OMS pods, engines, and then up here, this RCS pod, those are all interchangeable. I learned that. It's really interesting.
29,000 square foot hangar, the
Yeah.
shuttle would be processed for approximately 125 days. More than 115 multi-level platforms would surround the vehicle, so engineers could check 6 million parts. 6 million parts. What? But first technicians...
Yeah, because it's a big thing. It's got lots of things on it. Yeah, that's the difference between a pipe bomb. It's true, though. How do you think Starlink from New York to Hong Kong is going to fly? Starship? It's not going to. It's a bad option. It's
Technicians
just...
would don hazmat suits to clean the vehicle of any remaining toxic and hypergolic elements.
Yeah.
Then they would remove the orbital maneuvering system pods and the forward reaction control system modules to
Yeah.
be repaired and
Hey,
retested.
I
Then
said that.
crews would take off all 3 of the space shuttle's main engines, or RS-25s. These babies are still incredible engines, some of the most efficient engines ever made. But they required a healthy amount of inspection and...
You think I could build a newer, better Soyuz type LV that could be competitive with Falcon today? well, I have a... At some point in the future, I'm going to do a video. It's going to be a Know Your Rocket, but it's going to be a rocket for the future. So, you know. You wish for a regularly flown aircraft? Yeah, I work on an aircraft that's where we have to talk about like maintenance cycles and things like that. I'm not going to tell you any more, but because privacy and because some of you are not in the United States. I'm not going to. Oh no, the rocket reveal's not coming this year. I'm still working on the prototype investor's pitch for it.
Refurbishment between each flight.
So.
Each engine had 50,000 parts.
Yeah.
7,000 of which were life limited, and again
Yeah.
had to be replaced.
Yeah.
In
Okay.
2000
Your brakes are life limited. There's seals and valves on your car that are life limited. Your battery's life limited. I mean, you technically are life limited too, but that's a different thing, you know. Oh, AWACS.
Kennedy Space Center took over assembly tasks of the engines instead of sending them out for refurbishment.
Oh, yeah.
But perhaps the biggest and most daunting task of the space shuttle was inspecting the thousands and thousands of fragile silica tiles on the bottom of it.
Yeah.
There were between 24,177
Yeah.
and 31,088 tiles, depending on the orbiter. Every single one was unique and had to be carefully inspected, and if damaged, replaced. And of
Yeah.
course, all the avionics, the payload bay, the hydraulic control surfaces, etc.,
Yeah.
were carefully checked out between each flight as well.
Yeah.
In total, the space shuttle required no less than 650,000 hours of labor between each flight. Say the average person made $25 an hour, which I'm sure is kind of conservative for a highly trained technician. The cost of human labor to get a space shuttle ready for launch would be around $16 million. And again, that's being fairly
Valor.
conservative. But it wasn't always this way.
Wait.
Actually, before the
Opinion on Valor. I'm not sure what that is.
Challenger accident in 1986, the shuttle went through much less refurbishment and checks. So few, in fact, it may have seen as little as almost 1% the amount of labor hours between flights. But after the Challenger accident, NASA changed the entire process of getting the space shuttle flight ready and wound up going over every single inch with a fine-tooth comb.
I've heard about
It's
that.
probably a good thing when you're dealing
It's
with
neat.
life. Oh, and lastly, after 1989, to get the shuttle ready,
Wait, is Valor part of Future Vertical Lift? Okay, yeah, Future Vertical Lift. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what he's thinking of. That is neat. So, I think it was made during, yeah, it was due transpiration cooling.
it was placed on top of the orbiter transfer system, a 76-wheel transporter to take it from the OPF to the vehicle assembly building, to be mated with the external tank and the solid rocket boosters. Fun fact, SpaceX now owns the orbiter transfer system to transport their boosters. Okay,
What?
Now time for the big question. What does it take to get a Falcon 9 booster back to the launch pad?
A lot of interns, they all pull it like slaves. Starliner is a really cool system. It's a shame that Boeing has bungled it, but
Let me start off by saying a lot of this is speculation, since SpaceX doesn't make public
Hey.
exactly what goes into preparation.
That makes
But
sense.
Let's give a rundown on what they have done and what things they will be doing. So first off, if it landed on the drone ship, a little robot actually comes out and grabs onto the booster and hangs onto it. So this does. It's then transported back by a support crew of around 10 and 2 ships. But if the booster lands on land, the booster is picked up by a crane and put onto their transporter. For the first few years of the Falcon 9 reuse, the booster were shipped back to Hawthorne for the refurbishment. But SpaceX is building a booster refurbishment facility at the Cape. The first booster to ever land on December 21st, 2015 for the OG-2 mission was extensively torn down and inspected. Since this was the first booster that SpaceX actually caught in one piece, they had to check their work and see if it actually came out okay. On the first 13 reused boosters or non-Block 5 boosters, we know SpaceX changed out the heat shields and blankets behind the exhaust nozzles. We know they had to fix and repair the grid fins on the extra hot missions. We know they had to do a lot of inspections on the vehicle, but they also had to run an X-ray along the booster to ensure the fuselage is still good to go. Now I've heard speculations of between 1,000 to 10,000 human hours of labor
well,
for the
wait, here's the thing. Again, so every day you're skipping a big point here. The Falcon 9 first stage doesn't have to do the same mission as the space shuttle. It doesn't have to carry crew. It doesn't have. I mean, it doesn't have a same operational environment. Doesn't have the same operational profile. So it's it's different. It's just comparing these two is really hard. But people like you keep insisting on doing this. Now don't get me wrong. Some other people have done it. So you actually something that big? Oh, you just pretty much you build a rig and I think you just tag it, just drag it along. That's what you do. Yeah, we jumped in the I don't know. Again, I don't want to. Again, I'm not here to judge everyday astronaut. We're not here to judge him as a person. We don't do that here. Because I mean, you could judge me based on some things. You know what I mean?
turnaround of the Block 3 and Block 4 boosters. and say this is terribly conservative, say it's actually 100,000 hours of labor, that'd still be over 6 times less labor than the Space Shuttle orbiter.
But it's different. Okay.
Falcon 9 has much less systems to check over than the orbiter, so I think it's pretty safe to assume there's a lot less labor hours required to prepare it for reflight. We know SpaceX has a goal with their new Block 5 Falcon 9 to see it land and refly within 24 to 48 hours with nothing but inspections and checks between flights. The overall goal of the new Block 5 booster is to be
That still hasn't happened.
reflown 10 times without any actual refurbishment, only inspections. They built Block 5 having learned the lessons from the 24 recoveries leading up to Block 5. If you need a reminder of what's new with Block 5, I have a video all about what Block 5 is and what has changed. A quick list of things that are new with the Block 5 is a thermal protective coating on the whole booster, a liquid-cooled heat shield by the engines, a bolted octaweb, 8% increase in thrust on the first stage, upgraded retractable landing legs, titanium grid fins, an upgraded COPV 2.0, and a ton of tweaks that allow it to be even more reusable, and most importantly, rated for human flight. So how can the Falcon 9 booster actually be reflown without refurbishment? Can it? What's so different about the Falcon 9 compared to the Space Shuttle?
Well, I don't know. There's a few things every day. You take a look at them. They're not the same. It's kind of an easy one. Do I win? Where's my cookie? Where is it? God dang it! Where's my cookie? Also, why is it still not live? I gotta keep caught up so I know where I'm at.
Well, let's first compare it to the SRBs and see what it actually does differently. First off, the SRBs splash down in salt water. That's not really a good...
It's also made of a different material. That's D6AC steel, whereas the Falcon 9 is what? It's like aluminum 2219, I think it is. It's what the external tank was made of. I don't...
Good thing. Solid rocket boosters are also basically giant empty canisters that are loaded up with a rubber-like solid propellant between each flight. This is different than a liquid-fueled rocket engine that has, say, tens of thousands of parts. If a liquid engine were to be submerged in salt water, I don't think that'd be a good thing.
The ghost of Bob Truax will haunt you every night. From here until, I don't know, a while. Which external? Yeah, the super lightweight external tank used that carbon fiber. I don't think the SRBs use carbon fiber. Yeah, I remember reading about this. They were going to do that, and oh yeah, the carbon fiber is. I think it's interstage. Yeah. Yeah, I'm still alive. I know. Unfortunate, some people. Yeah, I'm still alive. This is my proof of life thing because I'm going on vacation tomorrow for 2 weeks. So, are there pictures of any Saturn? No. They had to keep away from those. The only way you could get a picture of one would be to be in the flight path of it, and that's not safe. So, and well, there were plans for carbon fiber SRBs for launches out of Vandenberg. The problem is I think they had problems with the joints. And this happened like in 1985 and 1986, right at the same time as Challenger. So they just said, we're not gonna do that anymore.
So right there is probably the biggest thing. Having a booster land on dry land or a dry ship deck is a huge leg up as far as reusability and refurbishment goes.
Unless you build a big pressure fed like somebody.
As a matter of fact, the SRBs were so expensive.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. Because they brought back the NTO tank from the Titan II that launched Gemini 5, I think.
To refurbish. In the long run, it was more expensive to bring them back, tear them down, and all that than it was just to build new ones. So why is the Falcon 9 booster more reusable than the orbiter? Well, first off...
Okay, so okay, again, you're not... I don't...
The orbiter was not only a rocket, it was also a spaceship that carried up to 7 people. So a lot of work and checkouts went into the cockpit, the interior, the payload bay,
because that's important.
Let alone the actual rocket engine portion of the orbiter. The RS-25 engine, although amazing and eventually refurbished on site, still required an awful lot of work to fly again. The Merlin 1D engine that SpaceX has developed has been fired over 5,600 times and is designed to be reflown and reused over and over with minimal inspections.
Well, again, when you say minimal inspections, we don't know what that means because SpaceX will never tell us. So I think the Falcon 9, it's possible that a Falcon 9 first stage will surpass the 40 flights. It's possible. We just have to see. Because I think they're up to like 18 on one of them. So, Oh yeah, the study of the reusable first stage for Titan II. That was what Art Schnitt was working on when he came up. We started working on what would become big dumb boosters. So, well, Ocean Gates made ignoring safety regulations a big no-no. Which again, don't ignore safety regulations, people. They exist for a reason.
How much, we don't really know yet, but more on that in a second. But perhaps the biggest difference between the Falcon 9 booster and the Space Shuttle orbiter is the velocity in which each one re-enters.
Yeah, mission requirements is a thing.
Let's compare the velocities of the SRB, the Falcon 9 first stage, and the orbiter to help understand why each one uses their given re-entry system. The SRB never exceeds 4,800 kilometers an hour, and it also stays lower in the atmosphere, so it doesn't require any kind of slowdown before it re-enters, well, because it never really exited in the first place. The Falcon 9, on the other hand, goes from up to about 8,000 kilometers an hour down to as low as about 5,000 kilometers an hour in order to survive re-entry using its retro propulsion. But it's safe to say it will probably never see much more than 8,000 kilometers an hour. The orbiter re-enters at speeds of up to 27,000 kilometers an hour, but it slowly bleeds off a lot of its speed in the upper atmosphere. Wow, those are some pretty big differences in velocity. Since the
Yeah, but again, and that's why when we talk about second stage reuse, that's why SpaceX never pursued it because on Falcon 9 is because he's do the math. You go, that's just not gonna make any money. That's not worth it. Yeah, it's just. Gosh. I think the Viasat 3 was the biggest one they've done.
Falcon 9 booster re-enters at only 8,000 kilometers an hour. It experiences up to almost 40 times less heat compared to the orbiter. What? How can that be? Well, since the first stage of the Falcon 9 only gets up to, at most, about a third of orbital velocity, it receives much less than just 1/3 of the amount of heat. The compressed gas on the leading edge of any vehicle will see heat increase by velocity squared, but the thermal energy transferred to the rocket goes up by velocity cubed. So that means if a vehicle is traveling 4 times faster, the bow wave in the front can get 64 times hotter, because that's 4 times faster, times 4, so squared, times another 4 cubed, so 64. Now, this is an oversimplification, but that's why the Space Shuttle needed those carbon leading edges and those silica tiles all over the bottom of it to survive re-entry. Not only that, but the Falcon 9 also does a pretty significant retropropulsion burn before it re-enters to ensure the vehicle can survive. The Space Shuttle didn't do any of this because it relied on its large surface area to slowly bleed the speed off for several minutes.
Because it's different. It's a different mission. I don't.
In fact, the Space Shuttle spent almost 10 times the amount of time radiating heat off through re-entry, which is the key to how its non-ablative heat shield worked. So long story short, the first stage is going slow enough to not get crazy hot, so it doesn't require nearly as much thermal protection. Therefore, it's probably safe to say it doesn't require as much refurbishment, hopefully. So, some final thoughts on all this. First off, the reason why I think the Falcon 9 will actually achieve reusability.
Where are you sitting now, buddy? What's this? I should do something like this. Oh wait, just so we're clear, when I get back, I'm going to announce that I'm scaling back the channel, just so we're clear. Spoiler alert.
When the Space Shuttle couldn't, is mostly due to the engineering philosophy of SpaceX.
No, it's not. No, that's not what that means. No. It's different design requirements. Just gonna. He might. It's a space toilet he got. It's a surplus Soviet space toilet. How much do those go for?
Are constantly tweaking their rocket to the point where, according to SpaceX's VP of production, Andy Lambert, SpaceX has never built any 2 vehicles identically.
That's also the problem with crew rating it. If none of your vehicles are the same, how are you supposed to ensure consistency? You're supposed to ensure quality control.
Such is the pace of innovation at SpaceX.
But the problem, I don't know.
Now, this is quite different from the Space Shuttle, that had only 5 operational vehicles that changed very little in their 30 years of operation.
Whoa.
As a matter of fact,
They uprated them. They got the engines to uprate. They changed the guidance systems.
Phase 1 of the Space Shuttle was only the first 4 flights of Columbia. After that, further development would be minimal. But with the Falcon 9, if an idea doesn't work out, they can literally make that change on one of the next manufactured boosters. And if it's a really big change, they'll do that in the next block iteration.
See, you know what I've heard? I've heard that SpaceX has nearly lost Falcon missions because of their awful safety culture. I've heard this. Again, it's a rumor because SpaceX has the strictest NDAs in the industry, so we don't know, but I've heard that they've nearly lost Falcon missions. Also, they crashed the Crew 5 booster into a bridge while shipping it across the country. Well, yeah, it's because every day, the reason every day is saying this is because he doesn't, again, it's the one benefit that me being an elitist here, because I did my aerospace engineering degree, is I understand what numbers and concepts mean, right? And that's the thing. I got one of my tasks. They're saying, hey, we got negative safety margins on this, and what I said was, I can't approve this. What's wrong with you? Right? That's the problem. I can't approve something that's negative safety margin. I know what these numbers mean. Or, hey, look, you didn't do the right loads on this part. You used the wrong assumptions. I know what that means. So, that's, again, this is not to be Mr. Elitist here, but I outrank. Yeah. What? I've been told repeatedly that rockets are just airplanes. Well, we could always do that. Spin launchers. Okay, spin launch is more practical than eco rocket. I'm actually going to talk about spin launch. I was going to talk about it last year, but my hard drive failure kind of did that. I'm going to talk about space guns again.
The Space Shuttle's design didn't exactly freeze, but it certainly didn't evolve nearly as much in 30 years as the Falcon 9 has in 8 years. Some
Because you can't afford to do that with a crew-rated vehicle, buddy.
might consider this much change reckless, but
It is.
considering the end goal is to actually have a reusable vehicle, I'm really glad they're pushing this aggressively. I just can't wait another 30 years. And lastly, to those that think SpaceX won't be able to make it worth the cost of reflying, or who question whether or not it'll be worth it for them,
Uh-oh.
luckily for us, it really doesn't matter. SpaceX is a private company. They will only do what makes them more.
Yeah, here's the problem, though. They have investors. Investors don't... investors will actually care about you incinerating money every year. Apparently, again, I've been hearing that SpaceX is incinerating about $2 billion per year, so... I just... Again, it's... with stuff like this is clear he's out of his depth. This is not to denigrate Tim. But the problem is he's treated like an expert, but he's out of his depth. I don't. Yeah, SpaceX has the strictest NDAs. You can't even acknowledge anomalies. So that's the problem. It just strictest NDAs. This is rumors I've heard about this, but every time that's going to need another investment. Aren't they trying to get one? I swear they are going to get one. They're trying to do one now. Oh, well.
Most financial sense. So if after a few years they look back and realize it's more expensive to try to refly these things than it is to make a new one, I'm sure they'll stop doing so, because they don't want to lose money.
Well, the problem is, they've already invested all this money into this system, and they can't turn around that easily. So, ruh-roh.
They don't owe it to anyone to reuse their rockets. It's only in their best interest to figure out how to do so they can maximize profits. And that's just different than the Space Shuttle, which had the weight of the entire nation's expectations to be reusable. Whether or not the system put in place actually made sense, it was too late. There was no room for major changes, per se, since Congress would probably frown upon, well, this didn't work out, let's scrap the entire idea.
Same approach to...
So personally, I think with this new age of innovation and materials, rapid evolution of hardware and software, and leadership that simply requires they keep trying until they
get fired and screamed at, and then insulted on Twitter.
I think we're finally entering a new era of reusable and airliner-like rockets.
No, don't say that. Don't say airliner. Don't say that. Ah.
Hopefully. So, what are your thoughts?
I don't think. Sorry, every day. I've told myself to stop thinking. I don't think. I think maybe 2 or 3 times a day at most, and I've exceeded my quota. So.
Actual reusability.
I make a video on the refrigerator. No, I don't want to. I don't really. I don't want to be a one-trick pony where all I talk about is Starship. So. You know.
Finally upon us, or do you think we're still going to be stuck in refurbishment land? What other questions do you have?
You
Let me
don't know
your
what that
suggestions and Video
means.
requests in the comments below. Thanks to Lucas from K News for his amazing animations. I've always been a fan of his work and was so
Those are
happy
nice.
to work with him on some of these visuals. Be sure and check out his awesome channel where he does updates on spaceflight news and other great spaceflight topics as well. Check it out, K News. And of course, I owe a huge thanks to my patrons.
No, I'm not talking. No more of you. No. Reusable pressure-fed Soyuz. I could do that. Give you enough. Give you a turbine fuel. No. Sorry, I just. Oh, that's true. I can always talk about Eco Rock. Didn't they just unveil another one where it's like 5 of them next to each other? That's just Aquarius. I will talk about Aquarius in a future Know Your Rocket. So again, there was supposed to be a Know Your Rocket coming out tomorrow, but I got delayed. I've been busy preparing for my vacation, so, and that's, you know, yeah, it's oh no trag, as I call it. All right, I think he also did. I think Everyday did a video trying to do damage control for Starship.
On February 21st.
Uh-oh. So wait a minute. I need to take a breather. So how's everyone? Oh, there are? Oh, well, I'll look for those. Need to go attend. What's the announcement? Oh, I'm not making any announcements. I'm going to. Well, the announcement for what I'll do in August is I'm going to scale back the channel. So that's kind of what's next. So let's see. Prox will ever be fielded in this. Probably not for missiles. Everyone's going straight to solids. Even North Korea's going into solids now. So scaling back is in less videos with my face in them. You're gonna see more Know Your Rockets and more end of mission episodes. So again, liquid fueled systems for orbital launch vehicles makes sense, but for missiles it doesn't really. So I know they're using New Shepard to test out landing software for landing stuff. I think they did that on one of their flights right after the first crew one. So yeah, well, peroxide's problem is that it does blow up if you shake it. See the Kursk. So I'm gonna switch over to my big face. We'll talk for a few minutes. Just because, look, it's me again. Yeah, but the thing is, solids are just easier to store. You can just lock them away and store them for 50 years. So, yeah. There's also the Beal BA2. That was a really interesting design. But, well, yeah. I mean, it's just peroxide's problem is that it can rapidly decompose, which is not good. Also, I think doesn't it leak a lot very easily? Yeah, everyone does solid missiles. It's the nature of the beast. Except maybe Iran, but they're just using Scuds. Star Raker Redux. Wait, there's a Star Raker Redux happening? Someone's making Star Raker again? Why? It's just a conceptual design. Uh-oh. Do I have to dig into something? Most awesome mission? Oh, don't get me on that. Oh, there's a lot of really cool missions out there. Oh, no. Uh-oh. Talking about cool missions. Well, the next mission we're going to talk about, end of mission, I think is pretty neat. It's Haiten Hagoromo. That's the one where they did use weak stability boundary theory to do maneuvers. So, oh yeah, James Webb's pretty cool. Cassini's a good one. Yeah, the next big mission that we're going to do on end of mission will be it's Haiten Hagoromo, Deep Space One. What's the next one after that? Vega 1 and Vega 2, but so. Oh no. Uh-oh. Well, CSS can do what they want. It's up to that's their prerogative. I'm just gonna wait till 9 before we do the next video, just because I want to scream at the camera all the time. Here's the thing. I'm really nervous for my trip tomorrow. I don't like flying. I'm afraid of heights. I'm going to another country. it's so ISE 3 is will be done this year or early next year. It depends on how fast we can make episodes. Because it's right now we do about one a month. My goal is to hit once every 3 weeks with it, but okay. I'm going to the Philippines, and I know some of you might be thinking, no, not for that reason. I'll pull up the Aquarius. Where's the Aquarius video? Oh, okay, I think I've seen this one. I'll put this on. We'll do this one after that. But load. Because I found the patent for Aquarius. Move this back. Okay, we'll close you out. You guys came from the Philippines? Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm going to be in Manila for a few days. Then I'm going to go to Siargao. That's going to be fun. Well, here's the thing. SpaceX knows how to make liquid-fueled engines. Solids are their own unique challenge to make. Internally, they don't know how to make them, and solids are weird in that they're expensive up front, but once they're operational, they're not that bad because they're really simple. They're the closest non-liquid to BDB, but that's what makes them interesting. Let's see. Oh yeah, Arco. I think we looked at eco rocket heavy ones, but well, I wouldn't recommend reusing solids. Spin launch. Oh jeez, oh god, no, that would not work. The biggest payloads you could do with a space gun are about half a metric ton, based off of quick launches work. Just because the problem is it's just you got to build a barrel that can survive this, which is just a nightmare. Tells you more insurance. Oh god, they drive like teenage boys. Is that what the problem is? Oh, there we go. Yeah, let's just. Oh gosh. Yeah, let's just launch nuclear weapons. That'll go over well. All right, it's 9. I'm gonna go back to let's scream at a camera. All right, let's go full screen. I got a 1.5 speed. All right, see ya, Scott. Oh, would moon cannon work? Yeah, it'd kill the crew, obviously. But a space... I talked about this. Can you use a space gun to go to the moon? The answer is yes, as long as you're launching a rocket out of it.
First, in 1969, the Soviet Union set a record for the world's most powerful rocket to fly.
Look at that!
A title that they would hold on to for over 50 years. But on April 20th, 2023, that record would finally be broken by SpaceX's Starship and its super heavy booster. People have been quick to point out the similarities between these two rockets, most notably...
I used it in my thumbnail. That was funny.
The ridiculous amount of engines on the first stage of each rocket. The N1 featured 30 NK-15 engines on its first stage, while Starship's super heavy booster sports 33 Raptor 2 engines. But the similarities don't end there. In fact, the first integrated launch of Starship proved the rocket to be even more similar to the N1 than most would be comfortable, considering the N1 flew 4 times but never made it all the way through the first stage burn. And this has brought up an all-important question. Has SpaceX fallen into a similarly flawed design that plagued the N1? Why did they choose so many engines? Will it continue to suffer a similar fate over and over like the N1? Or is there something inherently different? My name is Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, and today we're going to answer these questions and compare the most powerful rockets ever made from completely different sides of the world and totally different eras to figure out how they're similar and perhaps more importantly...
Oh jeez.
And like always, here's the timestamps for this video. The YouTube timeline is broken up into these sections, and we have an article version of this video up at everydayastronaut.com.
I can't read.
Sources.
Reading bad.
N1 versus Starship. Let's get started.
Okay.
Okay, let's start off by comparing these two vehicles side by side. I've talked about each of these vehicles pretty extensively in previous videos, such as Starship versus Falcon 9 and my entire history of Soviet rocket engines video.
What?
But I've never actually directly compared them before. The N1 was the Soviet Union's attempt at a moon rocket, a rocket that would nearly match capabilities.
Just so we're clear, when they say moon, every rocket's a moon rocket if your payload's small enough. That's a joke.
of the United States' incredible Saturn V rocket. It was massive. At the base, it was a ridiculous 17 meters wide, and it tapered up to a point with the upper stages that were about 6 meters in width.
Yeah.
It stood an impressive 105 meters tall, and fully fueled, it weighed a total of 2,735 metric tons. SpaceX's Starship, on the other hand, is even more of a skyscraper. It's 9 meters wide on both stages and comes in at 120 meters tall. But where Starship's numbers get shocking is with its weight. When it's fully fueled, it's about 5,000 metric tons, so almost twice as heavy as the N1. The N1 was capable of putting 95 tons into low Earth orbit, while Starship is designed to be able to take up to 150 tons into low Earth orbit, and it does so while being fully reusable. But what's even more ridiculous is it can put around 300 metric tons into orbit if it's not fully reused. This puts both rockets squarely in the super heavy lift category, with Starship being the most...
I don't see a cape. How is it super? As you can see, this is why I write scripts.
capable rocket ever built. Each rocket utilized different propellants. The N1 was powered by Kerolox, specifically RG1 and liquid oxygen. Starship, on the other hand, uses Methalox, so liquid methane and liquid oxygen.
Yeah.
The N1 had a lot of stages. The rocket had a minimum of 3 stages, but when sending a payload to the moon, it would have
It's going
utilized up to
fast.
5 stages, in a similar fashion to the Saturn V with the Apollo service module and the lander stages, and of course the entire rocket was expended. Starship, on the other hand, is only a 2-stage rocket, and again, perhaps most importantly, both the massive super heavy booster stage and the Starship upper stage are designed to be fully and rapidly reusable. But perhaps the biggest thing these rockets each share is the ludicrous amount of engines, like we talked about in the intro. The N1 had 30
Oh,
NK-15
it
engines
happens.
on its Block A first stage, 8 NK-15Vs on its Block B second stage, 4 NK-19s
Hunks.
on the Block B third stage, 1 NK-20...
Until rocket's bigger than Starship? Give me enough money and I'll build it, just for the heck of it. It'll be big and stupid, just like me.
1 on the Block G fourth stage, and an RD-58 on the Block D descent stage. There's 33 Raptor 2 engines on the Super Heavy booster, and 3 more sea-level Raptor 2s, and 3 vacuum-optimized Raptor 2s on the Starship upper stage. But these numbers are all subject to change, as Starship is still in development. The NK-15 on the Block A booster of the N1 utilized the oxygen-rich closed cycle, which those of you who have watched my deep dive on Soviet rocket engines may know, this is something that the Soviets mastered in the early 60s. The engines were impressive, capable of 1,526 kilonewtons of thrust, and 297 seconds of specific impulse at sea level, and had a mass of about 1,250 kilograms. Raptor 2, on the other hand, produces 2,255 kilonewtons of thrust, and 327 seconds of specific impulse at sea level, while having a mass of only 1,600 kilograms. This means the Raptor has approximately a 144-to-1 thrust-to-weight ratio, while the NK-15 had a thrust-to-weight ratio of about 125-to-1. So not only is the Raptor 2 much more efficient, it also produces more thrust kilogram for kilogram.
Yeah,
which
but
is important.
well, but the problem is you're also building an engine that's, you know, melting every time you ignite it. So is it really that much better? It's again, these numbers don't mean anything if it's useless, if your engine doesn't work. You know, no offense to any of this, but yeah, and that's the thing is, you know, there's a lot of people who just kind of treat this as the word of dear leader.
Important. Now, I should mention that, of course, in typical SpaceX fashion, they're still upgrading Raptor, and in the relatively near future, they'll be utilizing Raptor 3, which is already producing some even more impressive numbers. So this is all subject to change, but even with Raptor 2, we can see how advanced this engine is already.
So the problem with spin launch to orbit is just a weird version of the space gun. So the problem is that you're limited to what you can launch. It's pretty much ruggedized satellites because it's got intense G-forces, or raw materials to space because it's a space gun. You're extreme G-forces. You're not going to launch anything alive. You're not going to launch even your delicate electronics probably won't survive. So yeah, the Soviets were because again, the one thing the Soviets were really good at was just mass production of things. And also, they really worked with, I think, single shaft turbo machinery, which simplified things a lot. So, right, go through version of your engines. Yeah. So the other thing here is, again, I think I've heard others suggest that SpaceX is just out of their depth in building Starship, and that's kind of why they keep building new engines. So, why isn't because the math for making a warp drive work is mostly theoretical. That's way down the line that's like multiple solutions of general relativity have to be proven to work for a warp drive if it's even possible. So that's why.
So as you can see, the rockets are quite different from each other, but they do share a couple of similarities, like being super heavy lift rockets and utilizing several smaller engines rather than a few bigger ones. But they actually share more in common than just their hardware. So let's dive into some core philosophies that they share, including the pros and cons of utilizing so many engines, why they both believe in testing by flying, and heavily leaning on the iterative process. So let's start off with the biggest question people have. Why do these rockets have so many engines? Doesn't more engines mean more potential points of failure and ultimately a more complicated system? Well, many less powerful engines have a few advantages over fewer, more powerful engines. Most obviously is that a loss of an engine has less of an impact on total thrust levels with
No.
many smaller engines versus fewer larger engines. Let's look at the N1 versus the Saturn V. The N1 had 30 engines producing 45 meganewtons of thrust, whereas the Saturn V had 35 meganewtons of thrust from just 5 engines. So if you were to lose one engine on your Saturn V, you'd lose 20% of your thrust, which if early on in flight would have certainly led to a loss in mission. Whereas if you lost just one of your 30 engines, you only lose about 3% of your thrust, which is well within the margins to continue.
Well, in the case of the one time that did happen, it turned off all the other engines. So I mean, you lose all of it.
Pretty much any situation. But as far as reliability goes, more engines also has the potential for more failure points, more moving parts, more chances for failure, more complications, and more chances that one engine's failure could affect its neighbor and cause a cascading failure scenario. So there's a little bit of a bell curve here, and definitely an engineering trade between having fewer engines because it's simpler, but it's more susceptible when there is a failure. On the other hand, more engines is more likely to have a failure, but it can be more robust when an engine does fail, and it's hopefully not as catastrophic. SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket actually already utilizes this approach by having 9 smaller engines instead of one large engine, like their biggest competitor historically, ULA's Atlas V rocket, which only has a single RD-180 engine. So how has that been going for SpaceX? Well, for the Falcon 9, in total, 2 Merlin engines have shut down on ascent, and to date, none of their failures have ever caused a loss in mission. Now, there have been 2 other losses of engines which caused the failure of a Falcon 9 to land, but that's not mission critical. So overall, a larger number of engines have helped make the Falcon 9 become one of the most reliable rockets ever made. In fact, even the landing of the Falcon 9 has become more reliable than almost any other launch of a rocket.
Okay, so for the suborbital rocket, they come down within 15 minutes, so it's within 3 to 5 miles of where you'd launch, if you launched straight upward. But most of them launch in an arc, so they don't fall back on the ground at the launch site.
In general, with over 115 consecutive landings in a row. So SpaceX's landing of a rocket success streak is better than pretty much every other rocket's launch success streak. Think about that. And SpaceX has already taken this approach up threefold with their...
Again, Merlin's a different engine, it's a different propellant, and Merlin was derived from existing work. So...
Falcon Heavy rocket, which uses 27 Merlin 1D engines at liftoff, and to date, that rocket has had a flawless track record for mission success. Now, there's a few things you can do to help many smaller engines be even more reliable, including having each engine inside its own blast containment shield. This way, if the engine does experience a catastrophic failure, it won't affect its neighboring engines. This is something that SpaceX has already improved upon between the first Super Heavy booster that flew, which is Booster 7, and boosters after, which have a much more robust blast containment shield on each engine. But beyond the actual operation of a rocket, many smaller engines have a few huge advantages over fewer larger engines. First off, cost. The R&D and tooling costs can be depreciated through each engine much quicker if you're making, let's say, 5 times more of something. There's economies of scale that work really well here with smaller engines when you're cranking them out almost once a day.
But you're still, again, it depends on what you're doing, though, for the cost metric. It's not, again, you're not making a cell phone, you're making a rocket engine. So...
In fact, SpaceX is already making the Raptor 2 engines for under...
Oh no. Oh no, why is he... What's this? What's this? Oh no. What's this? I saw this before. Press the arrow key? Why should I press the arrow key? Why do you want me to skip the next 20 seconds? Why? No.
Now, and they're continually pushing to make them even less expensive. Compare that to the F1 engines that were on the
Oh,
Saturn V,
no.
which cost about $115 million per engine in today's
Oh, no.
dollar. So even though the engine produced 3.5 times
no.
more thrust, it was about 30 times more expensive.
Oh no. He's doing things. He's doing dumb things. Now, I understand what he's trying to do, but the problem is this metric is worthless. This is a gas generator cycle, high thrust engine. This is a full flow staged combustion. It's a completely different engine. Also, you're going with the number based on what a compulsive liar tells you. Jeez. What is better for a turbo pump and 4 combustion chambers or 4 combustion chambers and 4 turbo pumps? Well, it depends on what you're doing. So for the Soviets, it worked for them, so.
On $8 per kilonewton of thrust measurement. And don't even get me started.
Okay, so again, dollars per kilonewton is a terrible metric to compare these with because they're completely different engines. And now, I know Scorpius, Microcosm was using this to talk about their engine costs, but they're just talking about how their engine capabilities can scale easily. So... Yeah, it's weird. It's weird there's no one right answer for things. Well, except OTRAG. That's the right answer for everything.
On the RS-25 from the Space Shuttle and SLS. That thing is also ridiculously expensive and has even less thrust than the Raptor engine. Our numbers for the price came from a recent OIG report here.
Oh, God, no, don't go there.
And they're actually kind of conservative. The report even says it's likely much higher than that. So the RS-25 just really is not
No.
from a dollar thrust perspective. Smaller engines also don't suffer the same problems of combustion instability like larger ones do. This is where the combustion chamber is so big, different areas of the chamber can experience slightly different pressures and temperatures, and it can lead to oscillations. These small instabilities can lead to big problems, and it's combustion instability that almost grounded the F5 because its gargantuan F1 engines were plagued with combustion instability issues. The US figured it out, but the Soviet Union never really figured out how to solve combustion instability on large engines. Instead, it was most common for the Soviet Union to take one engine and split its combustion chamber up into two or four smaller chambers as a way to avoid combustion instability. When designing the N1, lead engineer Sergei Korolyov reached out to a new engine designer, the Kuznetsov Design Bureau, or OKB.
Kuznetsov, that's his name.
And wanted smaller engines to avoid combustion instability. Another advantage of smaller engines is they're just easier to handle, test, install, and move around in general. We see SpaceX moving Raptors around all the time like it's nothing down at Starbase and at McGregor. Being smaller and easier to handle ends up being an efficiency in time and labor hours. It's easy to imagine that it's...
Yes, Neutron plans to use simple engine. Yeah, again, even Blue Origin is doing this. If you want to make a rapidly reusable system, don't make you have to make engines that are more rapidly reusable or rapidly refurbishable, that they're not going to be pushed to the limits of physics and material science. So it's a bizarrely bad decision. Starship is uniquely bad in its design for a bunch of reasons. It's a case study for the future, I say, but that's just yeah. Again, I don't want to talk about Starship much because I'm not going to be a one-trick pony on that.
A lot easier to install an engine like Raptor that can be installed in hours versus an entire F1 engine on the Saturn V, which would have taken days and huge machinery to install. But high production rates also help find flaws in design and production much quicker.
But the problem is, if you keep cranking out an engine a day, you made 87 engines that don't work. Uh-oh.
If you have, let's say, 5 times more engines than another design that has fewer engines, that's 5 times more opportunities to find flaws.
Why is there a snowman? Why is there a snowman on that one? Does anyone know there's a snowman on that one?
This also applies to testing. If each engine goes through a similar testing phase, you'll rack up 5 times more testing time in total with several smaller engines, which will lead to a better understanding of the system and a more reliable engine in the long run. This means 5 times more startups and shutdown sequences. It means there's more time to really hone in what works and what doesn't work. Stoke Space CEO Andy Lapsa brought this concept up to me when talking about their unique test engine that has 15 combustion chambers, drilling the advantage of testing so many combustion chambers.
Every single test we're doing has 15 of these systems at once. We're racking up, if you rack up chamber test time, we rack that.
That's a good question of Stoke. I don't know much about Stoke, so unfortunately, but
15 times faster than a normal program. And that could be seen as a totally bad thing, but at the end of the day, it's got to work, right? Like, Starship's got a gazillion engines, right? And if you beat the crap out of these things enough, then you work all the bugs out and they're reliable.
Yeah. Now, of course, it might be easy to point to the first flight of Starship in 2023 and say, well, it doesn't look like those Raptors were all that reliable.
They aren't. Again, they aren't, though. If your engines aren't working when they lift it off, that means it doesn't work. You can't iterate a crew back to life. I think I said this once. Yeah, recycling saves you lots of money, right? Jeez.
Well, after all, were they? But let's not forget, those were literally some of the first Raptor 2 engines ever made. As of the making of this video...
Oh, but then why did you get... We're just repeating myself, aren't I? I'm just repeating the one video I made that has 5,000 views now. What the heck? That got more views than designing a better OTRAG. And that video took half an hour... That video took half an hour to make. And designing a better OTRAG took a year. I'm sad. I got depressed after that, actually. Just so we're clear.
SpaceX now has produced over 300 Raptor engines and have developed a much more...
And if they don't work, it's just a money incinerator.
robust testing regime for each engine, which will hopefully lead to outstanding reliability. I don't think it'll be nearly as much of an issue on later Super Heavy rockets. But at the end of the day, SpaceX still decided to fly Booster 7, despite knowing it had a relatively low chance of success. Why?
Because they need money. Yeah, it's unfortunate because I think OTRAG is much more interesting than SpaceX, but that's just me. It's unfortunate that that's what gets the clicks.
Why did they do that, and why did the Soviets do something similar with the N1?
Well, it's worse when you think about it.
Well, here's the thing.
How many Falcon cores do you need to replace Super Heavy? Well, the problem is you can't really use Falcon Heavy. You have to rebuild them. That's the problem. You have to build new ones every time. Because it's a completely different structural loading. You want to cluster them together, which means it's different load paths. You gotta write different tolerances, different vibrations. It's an entirely different design process.
the Soviet Union didn't actually have much of a choice in the matter other than to just fly the N-1. The N-1 not only couldn't static fire test the whole Block A first stage on a
Hey, wait a moment. That sounds vaguely familiar.
stand or at the launch pad, they couldn't even test fire each individual engine. The N-1s that flew all utilized the NK-15 engine. One flaw it had was it relied on pyrotechnics to open valves. This means they were single use and required a massive overhaul to fire again. So instead, the Soviets decided to test just one in every 6 engines that came off the manufacturing line to try and test for general errors in production. Now, as you can imagine, this means the engines flown on these flights weren't actually test fired before being lit for liftoff. So yeah, this means the only way to actually test the N-1 at all was to just launch it. And this is exactly what the Soviet Union.
Well, the problem is, then you got, again, it's not as easy as that. It's not as easy as that.
Did all 4 times, and again, never getting all the way through the first stage burn. Just send it is the common philosophy that both the Soviets and SpaceX have adopted. So why
that's not a good comparison.
did SpaceX choose a similar philosophy
Okay,
and just fly
wait.
Starship?
He got different glasses. Mine are different than his now. Okay, I took off my glasses, so everything's blurry. We have different glasses now, so we're safe. Well, the problem with hydrogen is it's a mixed bag to work with. Raptor was originally going to be a hydrogen engine, but...
Isn't it different with SpaceX, who does test every single engine, and they even performed a handful of static fire tests with the booster and Starship upper stage? Well, SpaceX still believes the best way to gather data and to get to the next step is to test. Even if the test fails, there's still a lot to learn. So instead of trying to completely solve the complex problem of flying, landing, and reusing the world's largest rocket, just start by trying it and seeing what goes wrong and what goes right. The goal of the first Starship integrated flight test was to clear the launch pad and...
Oh. Yeah, well... Well, yeah, again, N1 actually, I think it made it nearly to the end of the first... for its last flight, it almost made it to stage separation, so, you know... Yeah, Soviets were really good at mass-producing rockets. I'll never denigrate the rocket industry, but... I don't think everyday astronaut knows I exist. Unless someone sent him the one right by SSTO video, which isn't very good. Oh, okay. No, here's the thing. I kind of like the look of the aesthetic of a 60s NASA engineer. If you haven't seen any of my other stuff, right? I kind of look like that. I gotta get another shot in front of my dad's 58 olds. Thinking. I don't think. That's when I'm gonna start my own rocket company.
and not blow it up. Now, although the rocket cleared the launch pad, a large amount of concrete was violently ejected from below the pad and tore up a good amount of the area. But I think that's just going to be a small blip in history, and 2 years after the making of this video, no one's going to be thinking much about the concrete ejection problem from the first launch. But
I will, everyday astronaut, just to spite you. Oh, okay. Actually, Fly Rocket Fly, the documentary about OTRAG, has, they did share designing a better OTRAG. So, I am famous to them, which is really cool.
the first test flight did validate many things. The rocket
Yeah, it validated the engines don't work, the staging mechanism doesn't work, your hydraulics blow up.
made it through the point of maximum aerodynamic pressure, or max Q. It put the heat shield towers through some pretty strong high-velocity airflow. It validated aerodynamic models and guidance and control. It also proved the launch pad and systems, including the tank farm, the pumps, the coolers, the quick disconnects, and the launch clamps, all worked as designed.
But they got,
They got
no.
real-world experience from flying. So overall, SpaceX validated many things, and even learned the rocket was maybe perhaps a bit too robust, and maybe had too small of a flight termination system, since the flight...
No, it's because SpaceX skimped out on their FTS. That's why they did that. Oh, jeez.
termination system failed to immediately destroy the rocket when it was activated. And in my opinion, the fact that the flight termination system didn't immediately destroy the rocket was by far the biggest failure of the first flight test. Everything else
Well, I think the fact that the engines weren't running was probably the biggest failure, because that's more important to the system, but that's just me.
including the concrete tornado, actually went better than expected and was still largely considered a success. But this
No, it was not a success, but...
still all raises the question of why did SpaceX and the Soviet Union do this iterative design process instead of just doing it quote-unquote right? And, just engineer and test every part until it's pretty much perfect and you have a high degree of success for that first flight. Well, let's take a look at NASA's SLS rocket. It took 12 years to go from signed legislation to flight, but SLS had to work perfectly or else it was at risk of cancellation.
Debatable.
So things were tested, engineered, and worked out to a high degree of likelihood of
That's true.
success, which it nailed. Now, granted, it cost billions of dollars per launch vehicle and has cost over $30 billion to get to the first launch of
Starship has probably incinerated somewhere north of $15 billion, so it's... And I anticipate that Starship will cost somewhere around 20 to 25 billion when it finally flies, but, Yeah, I haven't seen For All Mankind. I've been told I should.
SLS and Orion, but it does just go to show how important it was that it all worked flawlessly on that first launch. Now, Starship, on the other hand, began
It did work flawlessly, and I don't want you to...
engine development in 2016, and around that same time, it became a legitimate project. So it took 7 years.
Okay, no. Starship started showing up around the same time that SLS did. Don't rewrite history in favor of thing you like. Oh, jeez, man.
Before the first integrated flight test, and it didn't complete all the milestones, and the rocket is still far from being operational. But we can imagine where the program will be in 5 years. Likely by then, it will be more operational, at least to the point of flying.
It's more operational. Oh, jeez, man. Come on.
Some tankers and payloads like Starlink, and hopefully even NASA's HLS Moonlander variant. And from there, the rapid production rate and the evolution of the rocket means it will only continue to become more capable and more reliable. And again, we're already seeing some details about an upcoming Raptor 3 engine, so everything we've talked about is likely to be outdated sooner rather than later, and I expect the 10th Starship that will fly will look quite different and will be a lot higher quality than anything we've seen to date, which is something that is harder for SLS to do because it doesn't have the freedom of failing or rapidly making changes in design.
Yeah, but here's a good fun fact for you, everyday astronaut. SLS works. Oh, will NASA have to certify Starship before allowing any of their crew to fly in it or even fly in their missions? Yes, they'll have to do a lot of certifications. Now, the difference for the HLS lander variant is that it's got to meet what HLS has to do. And so like SLS Orion has different validation processes because SLS has to carry crew from the surface of the Earth all the way to low Earth orbit and to the moon. So it's got way different requirements for that. But for Starship, the HLS variant, it's got different requirements. So, informed by SpaceX fans that Starship will be commercially viable. I don't think so. Yeah. So, it's really weird.
So SpaceX is following the footsteps of the Soviet Union by build fast, test.
It's not, again, don't say that. That's not a good comparison. They're also very Soviet in that they deny failures and pretend that they're actually successes. So that's the other thing.
Break stuff, iterate, fly, blow stuff up, learn from it, repeat. But will Starship ultimately suffer a similar fate as the N1? Well, now it's time for my final thoughts on whether or not I think Starship might repeat history.
Okay. So for me, Starship will not repeat history. It won't, because it's a different type of. It's got different missions, got different goals. It's going to end up turning into probably something like commercial Titan 3, in that it's not, because there's no market for it. So that's the, I'm doing YMCA. I'm just nervous. I'm going to get on a plane tomorrow at 6 p.m. and I'm going to fly to the Philippines. Well, not directly, but it's just, oh God. I'm just nervous. Yes, Iraq and Vietnam will turn a corner in 6 months. Well, it depends on when that 6 months is,
So why did the N1 fail, and is Starship doomed to do the same thing? Is there just simply such a thing as too big, too powerful, too many engines, and engineering too fast? I think the biggest misconception is that the N1 failed simply because it had so many engines. While in some ways, of course, it was a contributing factor, it's not really the full story. The main reason the engines on the N1 failed wasn't because of quantity, but quality. The NK-15s flown on the N1 were extremely primitive, and as we know, they were still relatively untested and quite...
Again, you're okay, whatever.
All these relatively new engines that couldn't be tested, a full first stage that couldn't be tested without flying it, and then a primitive computer called Cord that was in charge of managing that many engines. It was a recipe for disaster. Not to mention the N1 also steered via a pretty advanced mode of steering known as thrust differential. Thrust differential is where you throttle engines to provide pitch or yaw. So increase thrust on one side and decrease the thrust on the engines on the opposite side, and it will pitch or yaw the vehicle over. This means the engines need to handle precise throttle commands, and they spend more time in transients as they throttle up and down. This is a fairly advanced task, even for today's rockets with modern computers.
I don't want to take Starship to the Philippines.
As an engine shuts down, the Cord computer had to shut down the engine opposite of it so as to maintain equal thrust. The N1 could fly nominally with 4 engines shut down, but that actually means they could only lose 2 engines, since each engine that would shut down would require the shutdown of its opposite engine. So there wasn't actually much room for error. Starship's super heavy booster, on the other hand, primarily steers via the center 13 engines that all gimbal. Now, gimbling is where the engine itself can swivel and provide pitch and yaw. And assuming there's at least 2 engines, they can even provide roll control that way too. The Raptor 2 has an astonishing...
Oh, no, here's the thing, though. Actually, I learned this. So Starship, the upper stage, the Raptor vacuum doesn't have thrust vector control. It can't steer. It's awful. It's just awful. Oh, jeez.
Gimbal range of 15 degrees. This is the most gimbal range of any main engine, at least that I know of. And they can do so at extremely ridiculous rates with the new electromechanical servo thrust vector control system that will be on all Raptor 2s after the inaugural launch. That's something that was different about the first flight test of Starship. The older Raptor 2s were hydraulically driven for their thrust vector control system.
Why did it take on... No. Because I think that the billionaire funding it is... I think he might get a bit too flirtatious, you know what I mean? He was... Because didn't he do a creepy, like, hey, you want to be my girlfriend and fly to the moon with me? You know? It was kind of weird. Another thing is, I just don't think Starship's a safe system at this point. And it won't be safe by the time Dear Moon flies, if ever.
The gimbals, and those also had to rely on some hydraulic power units or HPUs, and those failed on that flight test. But now, with the electromechanical cross-vector control system, they won't have to worry about that at all. But having engines that gimbal also means that Starship doesn't need to shut down opposite pairs to maintain control. The rocket can simply use the gimbals to correct for any offset in thrust if an engine does fail. We actually saw this in action on the first flight test with Starship, where the rocket lost many engines, but it maintained control via gimbling, and it didn't need to shut down opposing pairs. Now, personally, I honestly have no doubt that had the N1 been able to continue flying, they would have easily figured it out, and likely within the next flight or two, and especially because the next N1, called the N1F, would have had much upgraded and much more reliable NK-33 engines. Another thing to remember is that Starship has had over 50 years of computer and aerospace advancements to lean on, which
That's
I don't
true.
think I need to really even begin to explain how much computers and aerospace has advanced in 50 years. In fact, thanks to modern computers, the engines can be less prone to catastrophic failures because the engines can sense when things are off nominal and they can quickly shut things down before they
Well,
burst.
STS-51F, that might be an issue. Improved Starship will look like. They won't have the giant window. The question, I don't know what it's going to look like. And yeah, the only people who know are at SpaceX. I don't even think they have a plan. So, you know.
But in the end, I think one of the biggest reasons the N1 failed altogether and never got those additional flights is the untimely and the unfortunate death of lead engineer Sergei Korolyov.
Oh, so wasn't the goal to not lose any engine? Not afford to lose? Yeah, that's true. That's the reason why people defending Starship's 3 engines not firing at the beginning was really dumb. Is you need all of your engines to work. If your engines aren't turning on, that's a problem. So yeah, I've heard that SpaceX just avoids doing stuff, and they think they're smarter than everybody else. What goes smaller? For the case of something like Starship, for what they want to do with like the landing procedures, smaller engines go better. Also, you can crank out a lot more. Again, mass production does help you. Again, it's a big trade-off. So it depends on a lot of different factors what you're doing. If you're building something like a big dumb booster, right, one engine's probably better. But drop the window? Yeah. What is this? Oh.
Who died right in the middle of development in 1966. And unfortunately for the program, Korolyov was the main advocate of the program, while his contemporaries, Valentin Glushko and Mikhail Yangel, had other plans and they just weren't supportive of the N1. Not to mention the program was underfunded to begin with, and after Korolyov's death, and then of course with the Soviet Union being defeated by the United States' Apollo program to the moon, the N1 was canceled before it ever got a chance to really mature and live out its ultimate goal of sending humans to the moon. Now, isn't SpaceX still susceptible to running out of money, or what if there's an untimely death of Elon Musk? Or
One, Elon's probably going to die because he's going to get, Zuck's going to beat him or something. That's going to happen, you know? So yeah, so the problem with what SpaceX is doing is they're building engines without doing basic testing to prove it, right? There's plenty of things you can do with a computer model before building it. What you really want to do is do a computer model work to kind of get rough numbers of what you really want to do, and then build a structural test article and squeeze it and blow it up and do that kind of thing. The same would apply to rocket engines, but the problem is I think SpaceX for some reason thinks that's dumb. I don't know. Again, we don't know what goes on internally because they're very secretive. So let's see. Is Steel going to work? I don't know. Who knows? I don't think it's going to work as well as they think. Probably. They still need a trench. They're trying to ignore digging a trench because they have to go through the Army Corps of Engineers. So when will Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates get Rocket Company? No idea. Well, Zuck first has to conquer humanity. And then Bill Gates is more concerned with helping kids in Africa. So, you know. Drop the payload requirement, use few large-stage combustion engines. Okay. It's pressure-fed landing engines. That might work. Yeah. But yeah, it's just, the problem is Zuck is a machine, right?
what if they just end up canceling Starship altogether? Now, in my opinion, at this point, I genuinely don't see much risk of that happening.
The biggest risk for SpaceX is the fact that their program doesn't really work. There's a a lawsuit being given against the FAA because of the launch, because they threw like dust 5 miles when they said they weren't going to. They tossed debris into a protected wildlife preserve, right? And SpaceX is incinerating money on this thing. The guy I follow on Twitter who works on the NASA side of HLS says that SpaceX is probably out of their depth and that's what they're going to run out of money for. So, yeah, the other thing is Soviet technology is unfortunately not as advanced as the United States could build. Sometimes the Soviet Union would build something where it's like, how the fuck did you make this? Right? But for the most part, it was less quality. Is more tractor factory than ours. which is why we could build liquid hydrogen engines better. That's why we went to the outer solar system and they didn't. Let's see. I could go. Okay, actually, look at this. Crunch your numbers, get a basic idea, build it. Yeah. In Texas. Yeah. Oh, I did hear. Yeah, wasn't the original vision for Raptor was to build a liquid hydrogen engine? That's what I heard. So, Starship has hyperbolic. Okay. A chopsticks catcher. So it's an interesting idea. I don't know if it's practical or not, because the problem it's for. I think someone else suggested this. I think JM talked about this. I think the problem is that Starship is really, really heavy, way heavier than SpaceX wants it to be, and so the chopsticks should theoretically get rid of the need for landing legs and that requirement. So, it's I don't think it's a very practical solution. Still beating the space race. Sorry, I can't hear you from the moon and the outer solar system and Mercury. Yes, I think we're talking about the same person. Space Guy 5. Yeah, I follow him on Twitter.
Not only has NASA invested billions of dollars into Starship, because they're going to be using Starship as the lunar lander for the Artemis program, but SpaceX has a solid revenue stream by not only being one of the most... they also are operating at the highest profit and fairings, but they are also quickly becoming one of the largest internet programs. Yeah. SpaceX is investing billions of dollars into making Starship happen, not just make it happen once, but they're literally mass-producing Starship. Although the N1 was set up in a similar fashion, with a production rate of up to one N1 a month, and they had engines coming out once every 1.5 days or so. There really hasn't ever been a rocket engine built like Raptor, which is being built so inexpensively and so often, and they're still building multiple facilities to build Starships at scale. Now they're tweaking engines to maximize economies of scale, the iterative design process, and of course, this is, after all, a reusable launch vehicle that once it's proven, it will be beyond disruptive. It'll be transformative. Much of what I just said can be backed up by the fact that there's already several vehicles mostly finished just waiting to fly.
They're out of date.
Granted, they currently don't have a launch pad to launch on as of the making of this video, but I think SpaceX can get that part figured out, no problem. Now I know it's easy to write me off as just a SpaceX fanboy that's gonna...
Actually, Vega 1 and 2 are, I think, the third space probes we're going to talk about. Blue Moon Lander's a cool design. It's interesting. I'd have to see more... I'd have to see... The biggest bottleneck for Blue Origin is liquid hydrogen storage. That's the biggest thing that they got to work with. Hydrogen's got to be stored at about 20 Kelvin. That's their biggest bottleneck. So that's the thing about it. And then, yeah, so their propellant transfer mechanisms, which again, you could probably use liquid oxygen devices or whatever. Yeah, it's what's it called? Crap. Microfluidics. It's one of those things. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, the biggest. I also heard that the management-wise, that Blue Origin's still kind of. I've heard the management's not that good, so. Let's see. Yeah, both Bezos and Branson. Well, it's also because to fly on Crew Dragon to space, you actually have to go through a lot of training, and I don't think Elon's physically fit enough to do that. I don't think he's interested in doing it. Whereas, again, a short 15-minute hop to space and coming back down is not that. It's not that intensive. I could do it. You could probably do it. So, what are everyday astronauts' thoughts?
I think that Starship's going to work out no matter what and not follow the same fate as the N1. But don't forget, over and over, SpaceX has proven to be able to do what was once thought impossible, and every time the impossible becomes routine in about a year. I mean...
Oh no. We're going to go there, aren't we? I heard of that, relatively space. It's interesting, yeah. I watched the Terran 1 flight, actually. I watched that live. That was really interesting. The thing is, yeah, it's the thing is, it's questionable where 3D printing would be better or not for it. So, and that's the practicality. I know are they just skipping Terran 1 and going straight to the big one? So, yeah, the big benefit of 3D printing is you don't have to design it the designing for manufacture is a lot different than building by hand, right? If you can't put a hand or a tool in there to, screw the bolt in, whereas you could just, 3D print it, that's a massive improvement. It just depends on where it works better than others. So, And again, reducing part count's good too. Grumman got bought out by, is now Northrop Grumman, and I don't think they bid. Or no, didn't they? Aren't they part of the Blue Moon lander now? Aren't they? You look, Dawn Arrow, I have not heard of them. Dawn Arrow, are they making a space plane? Is that what they're doing? Let me look them up. I have the Google. Dawn Aerospace. Please don't have a really GPU intent. Oh, they're building a space plane. That's neat. I'll have to dig into them. Looks like got upper stages, got Aurora. Okay, interesting. I'll have to look at them. Well, in 5 to 10 years, I have a recommended company for you if you want to really get into space. Once I unveil it, maybe next year.
Just look at the Falcon 9. First, just launching was considered impossible. Think of it. You know, getting to the International Space Station was something they'd never be able to do. They did that, no problem.
Who said they were never going to do that? Who said that? No one. You're making things up. Stop lying. Oh,
Then they started working on landing the rocket. People said that was impossible. Well, they did. And then people were like, okay, cool party trick, but you're never going to be able to reuse that thing. They did. They're like, okay, sure, maybe we'll reuse it once or twice. But you'll never like...
Don't. No. Stop. Stop lying about this. Stop. Oh, jeez.
You know, reusing things over and over.
What about hydrogen peroxide? It's just. Oh, jeez.
Will never be financially worth it. Now they are up to like 15 reuses on most of their fleet. Their fleet is just getting so ridiculous. They're so used. It's really rare to see one that's new, or it's really rare to see one expended or one that doesn't land. I mean, that's just almost unheard of these days. What about fairings? Those were supposed to be impossible and not worth it to reuse, and now it's rare to see a new set of fairings. And humans. Let's not forget about humans. People thought there's no way SpaceX would get humans into it.
Who said this? It was the concerns have always been about private companies doing cost-cutting measures to avoid safety regulations and killing a crew. And guess what? SpaceX routinely failed their parachute tests back in the day, back when they were doing testing. They also, they blew up their DM-1 capsule because of a design flaw that any idiot could have found. I could have found it. I am stupid. The Crew 4, they nearly lost their drogue chute. They had a piece of metal that could have fallen off and hit the crew. It's just... He's a propaganda channel for SpaceX. He's not objective. He's a cult member, and he's trying to sell this to us. And he's wrong, and he's lying. And his fan base can't tell the difference. It's just, oh, jeez.
Orbit. It was something that would never happen, of course. As we know now, they're the most prolific provider of getting humans into orbit. Not only for NASA getting to the International Space Station, but also private individuals doing free flights and things. I mean, it's just incredible. And all of these things have had people the whole time saying, this is impossible, it'll never happen.
Tell me who these people were. You'll never say who they are because they either don't exist or they're weird.
And now so many of these things are completely routine. Now, of course, it's really hard to predict when Starship will go from completely impossible and experimental to completely ordinary and routine and mundane.
It will work, but it'll only be... the problem is, Starship's market doesn't exist. It's Starlink, which is SpaceX's own payload. And then HLS, which is the stupidest design you could have come up with. Ah, jeez. Yes, I will talk about Salvage 1 at some point. It's on the... Again, I have the full, VHS rip of that movie, so...
But, of course, still game-changing. Now, obviously, as someone who will ride that rocket around the moon, I obviously not only believe this is going to happen, I'm quite literally planning my life around.
No comment. Hey! Wait a moment. Who are these people? I don't recognize any of these people. Is that bad?
So what do you think? Do you think Starship will suffer a similar fate like N1?
No.
Do you think we'll ever see a completed first stage burn and a full clean stage separation? Do you think we'll see it get to orbit, or do all the other things it's supposed to do and become operational? Will it take a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Never? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't hesitate to ask any additional questions. I'll get to as many of them as I can. I owe a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters and my YouTube members for helping make all of this stuff possible.
That's nice. So again, he doesn't understand this. He doesn't understand this. It's annoying. This is the problem. Is if you want to launch all the Starlink satellites, you're pretty much going to need a lot to carry up. So I'm not a weird independent arts consumer now. I mean, I do listen to pirate metal. I don't know if that qualifies as weird or not. Okay, go back to live. Jeez. We'll do this. Maybe we'll talk a bit more if there's other recommendations you might have. Yeah, pirate metal's good. Give me some Ailstorm. I do like Ailstorm a lot. Or Rumahoy. Who's the other group? I know Visions of Atlantis did an album that was more pirate stuff. So... yeah, it's... I don't think... the problem with something like Ansari X Prize is that really... didn't they have like the Google Lunar X Prize that pretty much no one won because no one could build them on time? The problem with stuff like this is space is nothing like the ocean or the ground or air even. And it's a high cost of investment for a very low cadence and low use industry. That's the problem with it. So I don't know if that would work. Space Pirates. I don't think I've ever seen a movie about space pirates. I read the book Corsair, which is about space pirates, which is cool. So. Ooh, yeah, Treasure Planet. That's a good movie. Yeah, I like that one. I haven't seen The Expanse either. I'm very uncultured. I'm sorry. There's literally a movie called Space Pirates? Oh. Oh, let me... Oh, The Ice Pirates? I think... didn't Red Letter Media cover them? Oh, wait, no, there it is. It's from 2014. Huh. Didn't know about that. I haven't seen Futurama either. Well, also the Discovery in 2001 didn't have radiators because they thought it would look like wings, so they didn't include that. So. Okay, so you're doing balloon launch, so a Raccoon. What I'd recommend is use like a helium balloon to carry a solid rocket up to altitude and then launch. So, that's what I'd recommend. So, all right, let's watch some Aquarius. Look, all 5 pixels, okay? This is the big pixel deficit of 2002. We were spending a lot of money on getting pixels to Iraq. So, wasn't that Zhuqi 2? Isn't that the Chinese methane LOX rocket? Oh yeah, and William Shatner. That was very sad. Also, wasn't Shatner a recovering alcoholic at the time, which is kind of rude? But, you know. Well, see, I have plans for a rocket, so. Well, the problem is getting propellant management at that point, so. Wait, how could anything with Dennis Hopper be not good? You're a sinner, Java. Does this have closed captioning? Yes. Oh, it's auto-generated. This will be fun. Ooh, microcosm.
The California Aqueduct delivers much of the water used in the state. It is cost-effective to allow one-third of the water to be lost en route, mostly through evaporation. The electrical power grids deliver virtually all of the electricity used nationwide. It is cost-effective to allow one-third of the power to be lost en route, mostly through resistive heating. Using the same cost-effective loss-tolerant notion as the aqueducts and the power grid, The Aquarius low-cost launcher can achieve the low-cost launch of consumables needed in space by permitting about 1/3 of the launches to fail. The purpose of this video is to provide background.
Don't you diss the original Super Mario Brothers.
Concept, which is new for the space business, but has stood the test of time for commodity delivery in other fields.
I love this inspiring.
About
Hey!
1/3 of the launches are expected.
Hey, I know what this is. This is Aerobee testing from Sea Launch.
To fail, but this low-cost vehicle can be easily produced in excess quantities to compensate for losses without making the overall program cost high. In March 2002, DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency,
This is great.
awarded a contract worth about $100 million to Boeing Corporation to build space hardware to demonstrate the ability to resupply orbiting spacecraft with fuel and equipment. In late 2002, NASA plans to award a number of study contracts to investigate novel means to resupply the International Space Station. Studies are underway at Boeing and its Space Systems Loral to investigate the usefulness of servicing commercial spacecraft in geosynchronous orbit.
Hey, that's been done
The
finally.
Aquarius launch
Oops.
vehicle can serve these developing markets by providing a low-cost supply of consumables. These consumables, including water, food, air, fuel, duct tape, and other supplies, would cost little and be easy to replace. It would be illogical to launch $10,000 worth of easily replaced supplies using a $50 million rocket. Aquarius achieves a much lower cost of $1 to $2 million using a simple no-margin design involving lower-grade parts and a minimal amount of testing. This strategy facilitates low cost with the consequence of reduced reliability, which is acceptable for the type of payloads that would be carried. Should a modest number of failures occur, the vehicle would not stand down until it was requalified, but would continue to be launched. The launch vehicle will be of a simple design with no redundancy. The use of existing facilities for handling the vehicle will be maximized. Technical studies indicate the feasibility of making Aquarius a single.
I just can't wait to make my own renders of this for the Know Your Rocket, so it looks better than this, at least. Where are you going now, Jam? You got more pizza for us? I have done a budget estimate. It's gonna be a good one. That's where I bought my cost model for it, and it's interesting. It actually incorporates flight rate into the numbers, which is good.
Single stage to orbit vehicle, or SSTO.
Oh,
This
yeah.
has the advantage of making use of a single main engine, a single set of propellant tanks, and a minimum parts count, thus holding costs to a minimum. Propellant tank analysis conducted by Microcosm and Wilson Composite Technologies, two California-based companies that are partners in this study, indicates that large, lightweight composite tanks can contain the cryogenic propellants required for this vehicle. Achieving a low tank mass is critical for the success of the Aquarius vehicle. The total launch cost is estimated to be on the order of $1 to $2 million. The payload to orbit to be about 1 metric ton.
Yeah.
This is nearly an order of magnitude below the launch cost
What?
for existing vehicles. As will be shown, a great deal of heritage already exists for the Aquarius concept. No development
That's
of
good.
risky or expensive new technology is expected.
Is this
The
good?
water in which the vehicle is floating prior
Hey, that looks familiar.
to launch serves as an indestructible launch pad. Unlike a land-based launching facility or a floating platform, the sea cannot be harmed by the vehicle, even if a serious failure occurs, and can be reused as frequently as desired. Relatively
The rocket has a name, yes.
low cost, low
Oh yeah, so the one design flaw with Aquarius is the fact that they were to use gaseous hydrogen to pressurize the liquid oxygen tanks. I think I remember correctly, if I read this correctly, that for the pressurization scheme they were doing, the static electricity when you shuffle across the floor and then touch a doorknob, that shock is more energy than needed to blow up the tank. Half-stage rocket? Yeah, stage and a half is an interesting concept, but it's kind of limited. I have a name. Here's the thing. I have a vision. Right? And remember, you gotta say like I have like the word appearing in front of my face. I have a vision. So that's. Oh, thanks. Korean letters. It's Korean, right? I'm gonna be in South Korea actually on Sunday for my flight.
Low-tech barges can be used at sea to move Aquarius to its launch site. Floating launch therefore appears to be the...
We have to fight the orcas. You've heard about them, right? They're like attacking people now. We've got to fight back. We have to get the high ground.
Best approach for Aquarius. Most of the test launches shown in this video were conducted under the U.S. Navy's Project Hydra.
Yeah.
All of these floating launches were based in California. The state of California is home to virtually all U.S. floating launch research. This advantageous mid-Pacific launch position, far away from any landmass, is readily accessible from California. Sea Launch Corporation already makes use of a mid-Pacific position and uses Long Beach, California as its home port.
Oh, stage and a half rocket. The old Atlas design is stage and a half. I'm only going to stay in South Korea for about 2 hours in the airport terminal. So stage and a half is for like Atlas. They had, the 3 engines at liftoff, and they just dropped 2 of them in mid-flight. About 30% of propellant left. Have founder says, I don't know that. Again, I'm really good on the technical side. The rest is, I'll sue anybody to be founder.
Towed barges permit low-cost transport and deployment of the launch vehicle. The barge shown here is 400 feet long and 100 feet wide. Such a barge can be towed at sea by a single ocean-going tugboat. Nearly 20 barges...
This is very inspiring music.
...this type are owned by Crowley Marine Services, which has its headquarters in Oakland, California. Barges in commercial use can be partially submerged at sea for short spans of time. This permits...
I'm going to have to render all of this for the Know Your Rocket, aren't I? It'll be fun.
Cargoes to be removed from the barge by floating them off. This method has been recommended for consideration by Crowley Marine Services.
Oh, what was that? Oh. Ooh. There we go.
The launch vehicle...
Made larger, could travel to space. I don't know. With SSTO, my answer is usually no, but it's debatable. Drop a rocket from space onto his house. Do you think? Aquarius video. This is called just Aquarius Launch Vehicle 1 and Launch Vehicle 2. That's what the title is up here. Oh, right, my face is in the way, isn't it? Where's my OBS? There it is. That's the name. We're at part 2. You can see it, right? Heat transfer coefficient between liquid and gas. Gonna need that. Oh no. Oh god, you want to do autogenerous pressurization? Run for your lives. That's. I don't know where you'd find. I don't know where you'd find that. Good.
Is brought to a vertical orientation using simple, low-cost means that treat the vehicle gently. A weight is attached to the aft end of the launch vehicle by a long tether. The slow descent of the weight through the water pulls the launch vehicle to a vertical orientation. In 1984, a large concrete block was used as the weight to erect the commercial Dolphin launch vehicle at its launch site near...
Wait, I could have used this for the AMROC Know Your Rocket then. Dang it. Yeah. Oh yeah, done. Yeah, I used him for some of my references on SSTO.
Catalina Island, California. This vehicle was over 50 feet long.
If you look at... I know there's some of the archives on like the... what's it called? Like the Y Combinator has some of those, I know. Like the SSTO propellants. I know he was going to plan like a peroxide propane vehicle. made of DA6C, D6, no, DA, yeah, this SRB materials, but that's as far as I know. Yeah.
Tests conducted by the U.S. Navy indicated that the floating vehicle remains within 3 degrees of the vertical, even in moderately heavy seas. Use of cryogenic propellant has already been demonstrated for floating launch.
We get it, you vape.
Here, the Dolphin launch vehicle is shown venting vaporized liquid oxygen. Tests by Aerojet General Corporation show that performing engine ignition underwater is significantly smoother than ignition in air. Mid-Pacific launch permits a wide variety of useful orbits to be reached from a single launch site near Hawaii.
Yeah.
The Aquarius launch vehicles would be transported empty from California to Hawaii and stored on land in a Hawaiian seaport until launch preparations began. The barge used for launch support would also be used for long-distance transport. Only a small number of launch vehicles would be launched by a barge on a single day, but many would be transported dry on a single barge from a California port such as Long Beach to a port such as Kauai High on the Big Island of Hawaii. The vehicle
Fermented wheels into energy storage technology could create a rocket that runs on electricity by heating air and fuel with powerful healing elements. Oh, so you're talking about laser launch. You could sort of do that, but it's, You gotta run? Well, see ya, anti-Elon guy. Have fun. I want to buy a cigarette. Yeah, well, cigarettes will make you look cool. Dying soon is worth looking cool.
would not be fueled and loaded until ready for launch. Barges cannot reach inland factory sites, such as those in the Central Valley, where production might be more economical due to the high cost and limited availability of waterfront property. The launch vehicles are trains to transport by road. Therefore, they would be shipped by rail. Rail transportation has many advantages due to its low cost, high capacity, and its accessibility even in areas far inland. The Union Pacific Railroad was consulted during this study.
Yes!
Just like the barges recommended for ocean transport and launch support.
What happened to this? I want to know what happened to this. What happened to this model? I want to know now, because this is really cool. Hey, you can probably find a train that's carrying SRB segments. When that goes, you know.
Trains represent mature, low-cost, low-tech means to support this project.
And they're cool.
Railroad trains can accommodate the very long launch vehicles. The launch vehicle is mounted on a single load-bearing flat car. Due to its 130-foot estimated length, the vehicle overhangs two adjacent flat cars, which are referred to as idler cars.
Just chilling.
This arrangement was recommended by Union Pacific Railroad. Transport within a freight yard or within the back lot of a factory would be handled by a properly configured semi-truck.
So the real question is, does the guy still run his Aquarius model on that train set? That's the real question.
This truck might be too long to be permitted on roads, but would be acceptable in a restricted access area. Semi-trucks would assist with loading and unloading the launch vehicles from trains. Configuration of the launch vehicle and avoidance of obstacles are issues when the train travels over curves. An actual railroad has more gentle curves than this scale model. Union Pacific Railroad reports that a launch vehicle of suitable length can be transported from Palmdale, a candidate inland factory site, to Long Beach, a candidate seaport. The payload carried into space by Aquarius will be detached from the launch vehicle by a space tugboat and ferried to its destination. The Aquarius payload configuration will be made compatible with standards developed by current orbital servicing studies. Studies conducted by Space Systems Loral indicate that a space tugboat is feasible and could be derived from current operational spacecraft designs, such as the Global Star and Loral spacecraft 1300 buses. In conclusion,
That's an image. Well, again, you'd have to put that into your design considerations and transport. You'd have to probably build special cars for it, right? Special train specifically for that, but you probably could.
means and the market for low-cost launch of consumables are developing. The concepts displayed here point the way for technical development of the launch vehicle. The studies funded by NAVA and NASA to commercial companies demonstrate that this market is being developed at the federal level. Successful businesses built upon the supply of consumables and other items of general use are a part of California history, from the gold rush up through Silicon Valley. Aquarius is a new application of this time-tested business plan. Like selling shovels to gold miners.
Yeah, see, this is the great pixel rush of 1849. You can see them panning for pixels to make better images. Oh, okay. So I guess, yeah, so 1/3 just don't make it. Yeah, okay.
It will provide mundane but necessary supplies to more exciting, high-payoff space projects. Aquarius will support broader, beneficial use of space by providing supplies and support for a wide variety of space missions. Individual space projects will come and go, but
Okay.
Aquarius will remain.
Okay, so I gotta make this for the thumbnail then, don't I? Oh, I don't do it for my thumbnail for the Aquarius. It'll be 3 of them, but one of them's exploding. That's what I'll do. Yeah, well, that's again, they had the big gold rush for pixels, and they had to keep shoveling more, you know?
Remain, furthering humanity's development of space. The use of floating launch appears advantageous to minimize cost and risk. Virtually all American floating launch research was conducted in California. California is well suited to be the site for the.
Need to see a lot. I'm dead on the inside, Zev. I have not seen that video on Raptor reliability. It is getting late, so I'm probably not going to watch it anytime soon. I think they're trying to talk about and justify it. It's hard to say because SpaceX is very secretive. So
the production of this new low-cost launch vehicle.
Okay, when did Hawaii get so close to California? Is that part of the budget for this too?
To its many Pacific seaports and the wide choice of inland factory sites that are accessible by
train.
rail. The Aquarius low-cost launch vehicle concept holds promise not only for the low-tech sectors of our economy, but for the development of new facilities and hundreds of aerospace jobs for California.
Neat. You got a morning shift. Oh. That doesn't sound like fun. I found the patent for Aquarius, so that's fun. All right, folks. This is a weird mix of suggestions. It's everyday astronaut and space stuff, and then it's metal. And then, well, Woodkid. He's not metal. But, all right, I'm going to switch over. Let's see. Let's go back to this one. There we go. Uh-oh, you have one more thing to show me? Oh, no. I feel Mars mission should have as many crew as possible. Well, there's a trade studies on this. My eye's going up. You can see that's how I'm tired. So trying international water does not evade FAA regulations specifically because it's still a US based thing. There's a big kerfuffle over sea launch back in the day. No malware bites. I'm not gonna keep doing you. No, go away. Okay, where's the Discord? Let me open it up. Is that in Happy Fun Things? No, that's Gutsa. Where is this? Oh, is that about the person that was it her name Miranda sings? Is that what this about? This is about. We're not gonna do drama here. Not a drama channel. Oh, okay. Okay, let me just okay. Let me open it up. Put it over here. Okay, let me change my background. Not you. Okay, 'cause I see. Oh, don't play. Just pause. Just wait. Don't go anywhere. There we go. Okay, change the settings. I'll get the thing back up. Okay, playback speed is normal. Quality is there. OBS, switch back. Main. There we go. This one. All right. I'm gonna hit it. It's at 1x speed.
I'm sorry that I took your grandma's liver. No, I didn't know better when I made that ransom letter. But all I wanted was $1 million when I kidnapped her and your mother and father. So cut me a little slack. I just want a little crack. I mean, I used to, but now you won't get off my back. I'm sorry, I guess. By the way, I accidentally decapitated your cat.
That's very rude. Yes, I am alive. I know, it's unfortunate to some people. That was funny. Yeah, I know. It was recommended by JM. Blame him. Go back to my face. Look at this. Look at this. Oh. 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 Yeah, again, the problem is you're getting people trying to do technical analysis of something based off video. So I'm not going to watch the trailer for a movie that might get me, like, attacked by people. My eye is still going up. That's not good. All right, folks, I think this is time to wind down. I got to fly on a plane for 15 hours. And I'm afraid of flying. I don't like flying. So let's go to another, well, till 10:15, and then we'll call it quits. How's that sound? I don't hear any responses. Oh my gosh, is everyone left already? Just feel my abandonment issues. It's okay. I'll just cry myself to sleep. I have not seen Bakaru Banzai. I've heard of it. I am flying to the Philippines. I hope I have a safe flight. I think I'm flying on a 777, so I think that's pretty reliable. So, yeah, I'm just in the aisle seat. I'm not going to look out the window. That's just, it's like, oh, look, the Pacific. So, are they using Raptor 3? I don't know if they're using Raptor 3. I don't really follow Starship that much. No, don't tell me what to do. I'm not going to have a fun trip now. You told me to have one, so I'm not going to. I'm a child at heart. Oh god, it's going to be hot and humid. Oh yeah, that's what I've gathered. It's going to be I'm gonna die. I'm probably gonna get dehydrated and die. So that'll be fun. Oh, they could. And look, this is the MCLV, right? Wait, you can't see my mouse. But that's the MCLV that's spinning, which I'll talk about. I recorded the audio. I started making the video. It's just I ran out of time to finish it before tomorrow. So this rocket, this is about to scale. It's tiny. It is very cool. It's also terrifying. Yeah, well, studying is a bit, you know. No, I'm taking a 777, not a 737. I'm taking a 717 to Atlanta, then from Atlanta to Incheon is, I think a 777. Using a reusable rocket kind of makes it harder. Well, again, when you're designing something that you would be able, it's good. You gotta do massive trade studies for this. It's not, there's no one way to do things. It's just, if you know that you're going to lose this much payload for reusability, then you got to design around that for whatever you want to reach. My eye is going up because I'm tired, but I'm not gonna go to sleep till about 2 a.m. because I can't sleep. Or I'm nervous. Even when I drive across the country, I don't sleep very well, which is funny because I get up at 5 to leave. And we will be re-recording episode 4 for end of mission. So, okay. Early morning walks. Yeah, I'm going to spend 2 days in Manila. Well, technically 3 in total, but I'm going to be jet lagged on Monday when I get there. And then I'm going to be in Siargao, which is kind of more of a tourist, like, beach destination for the rest of it. So, and I have a friend I'm going to meet in Siargao, which will be fun. She knows the place better than I do, because, you know, she's been there a lot. Let's see. I'm going to think if there's anything for updates. Yep, so nothing coming out in the next 2 weeks, because I'm going to be dead. I'm afraid of heights, and I know how planes crash. And that's the part that scares me. Even though I know it's not rational. But, you know. I'm not returning to, no, I've never left the United States. The only time I've left the United States was when I went to the Canadian side of Niagara Falls. Well, actually, Lutz Kaiser did meet with the Marcoses back in the late 70s, early 80s, and he was trying to sell OTRAG. And now the son of the Marcoses is president there. So, yeah. Yeah, no, my aircraft. That's got wings. There's an engine. Oh, look, there's another one. I'm sitting out. The guy next to me doesn't seem to like this. Hey, you like cameras? Uh-oh. Actually, there is a guy who does talk about different aircraft. I remember watching a few of his videos about Soviet commercial jets, which is really interesting. I forgot what his name was, though. This is like back in the early pandemic. Let's see, it's 10:14, so you have a minute. Everybody, final thoughts. Any final questions? Anyone scared? Anyone trying to stalk me? Of course, my hotel is near the U.S. Embassy, so. Oh, well. I know you sleep too, face of sarcasm, and I can drive there in 2 days. You know that I can do that, because I've done it. Wait, there's cocaine in the White House? Well, you know, Joe just got to stay awake and go and... You know, he's from, like, the 1920s, so he obviously does that for fun, you know? Yeah, so let's see, this... yeah, all right, guys. All right, guys, I'm going to start redesigning this thing. What are you doing, you insane person? It's just like that episode of Father Ted, where they're on the plane. We're all stuck on the plane, there's a problem on it. That's a good episode of Father Ted, by the way. That's when I should have the parachute. Oh, you missed? Oh, well, you know. Wait, I have to have a gun? Oh, no. I'll build a space gun. Oh, that's what I'll sell the Marcoses. Oh. Oh. I mean, guns are fun sometimes, I guess. All right, then. That's all for the next 2 weeks. Have fun. I could get some shirt. I don't have enough room in my suitcase. That's the thing. Alrighty. I could have a garage. Well, alrighty. How do I end stream? Oh, right. Yeah, that's fun. Alright, everybody. Good night. Good night, everyone. Good night, John Boy. Good night, Gilligan. Good night, Skipper. Good night, Professor.